Hello and welcome to A Women's Work, Female Athletes and Allies Unite Holding Space for Solutions. My name is Mhkeeba and I'm working with A Women's Work film team to produce this event on their impact campaign. For those who are not familiar with the documentary follows two former cheerleaders in their path to who filed a class action lawsuit against their team in the league alleging wage theft and illegal employment practices. Today, we're hearing from 7 amazing women looking to change this. They include journalists, athletes, storytellers, and lawyers. So I'm so happy to welcome Mhkeeba, Pate, Ari Chambers, and AJ Andrews tonight, and I'll give them a quick little intro and they can start their conversation. So each section of tonight will be about 30 minutes, and then we'll hold time for questions, and we'll move on to the next speaker. So we're excited to have everyone here today. AJ Andrews is TV host for DraftKings, East Bay, and Players Tribune, and professional softball phenomenon. AJ made history in 2016 as the first woman in history to receive a Rawlings Gold Glove. She's a Rally Spike's most stolen base winner and All-Pro. Best known for her flashy aerobatic catches and motivational speeches, she graced the cover of magazines including ESPN Body Issue. AJ was the first softball player in 10 years to be featured in the magazine. Host of ESPN's TV special, Unapologetic, the Black female athlete and creator empowerment discussion. AJ thrives to inspire women in sports to dream bigger and achieve more. So we're so excited to welcome AJ. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And next we have Ari Chambers. Ariel Chambers is a multimedia journalist, host, and social media manager based in New York City. She utilizes storytelling to amplify the voices of women and magnify their experiences. She has served as a reporter of the WNBA and NCAA. Women's basketball, covering multiple WNBA All-Star games, NCAA Women's Final Fours, and ACC women's basketball tournaments. In 2019, Chambers accepted a position to spearhead Bleacher Sports' new platform, HighlightHER, and has grown it from the very beginning of now to now over 70,000 followers and counting. She was named Forbes 30 Under 30 in 2021. Congratulations.
Thank you, sister. We're now over 100,000, so I'm really, really happy about that.
Yes.
100,000 mark.
We need to update the bio.
I do, girl. That website is just a little low for me. My bad.
And so next, we have Mhkeeba Pate. Mhkeeba Pate is the founder and host of pro cheerleading podcast, The Truth Behind the Palms, which reveals the untold truth of professional cheerleading and supports the community of aspiring alumni and current pro cheerleaders from various sports teams. Mhkeeba is a former NFL cheerleader for the Seattle Seahawks, including the Super Bowl and 2 Super Bowl appearances, and performed at Northwest. She graduated with a BS in marketing from Georgetown University and has a doctorate and MBA from Temple University. She practiced law for over 8 years, specializing in commercial transactions, intellectual property privacy, so many things. So many things you're gonna have to translate for us who don't know the law as well. So.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Seriously, It's so good to see everybody.
Yeah, so I'll pass on along the virtual stage to these three and they'll continue the conversation for you tonight.
So guys, I'm just happy that we're here all to share in each other's energy. I think that this is like an open-ended conversation, right? We just get to share in each other's space. So I just want to start off by saying that I'm so inspired by the two of you guys. Definitely just love following your journeys, both of you, very, very closely. I know that we have a long way to go before we get equality in sport, but I'm just so happy that you guys are there to set the example, to break down barriers of women in sport. And I'm just lucky to know y'all. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Oh my gosh. Feeling is beyond mutual. I'm serious. I'm so excited for today, excited for everybody who's with us, and to be part of this panel is like super humbling and just, I'm excited. Let's chat. I'm excited.
Let's chat. Yes. No, I think that it's amazing to be able to come together with so many women who are like-minded and wanting to really try to change the trajectory of women in sports. I think we're on a great path right now, and I think we're continuing to elevate our voices, elevate the other voices of women in sports, and I think that that's what's necessary in order for us to continue to move forward. So excited to continue that conversation.
Yeah, I think it starts, I'm not moderating or anything. We're just literally talking about, I think it starts with just owning ourselves in that space, right? Like when I first entered Bleacher Report, they took a chance and bet on women. And I hate that phrase, bet on women, because I think it should be invest on women, because bet has that underlying thing of like a risk, right? I don't think there's any risk of believing in women being in the sports space, because not only are we in the sports space, we're excellent at it. And even the ones who aren't excellent in it, we should be able to not be excellent in it. You know, I think that a lot of times we don't talk enough about how it's okay. It's okay. You know, certain people, like men, don't always have to be so excellent. We can have our ebbs and flows in life and really just own the space that we want to own. But as far as an introduction to me, yeah, it pretty much covered it. I've been covering women's basketball for over a decade and just recently dipped into other women's sports. And that's how I know AJ. So I'm really happy that I got to do that so I can meet all the dope women that occupy the sports space. But I do have a professional cheerleading background, a competitive cheerleading background as well. And so just having that passion for not only cheerleading, but I played volleyball too. And I'm actually in Dallas for AU volleyball, but that and learning new sports and learning the different games, the different sports that exist has been a pleasure. But I think that trumps every triumph, or trumps every like trial and tribulation that I have within the sports space, because players like you exist, right? The players like you exist, AJ, that have so much depth to them that can really touch any walk of life. And you know, with us two in the professional cheer setting, you know, the cheer world, we don't even know what's going on right now, but we occupied that space and we dominated it in that, we performed in that, and we exited when we wanted to. And I think that's really, really something we should get into.
For sure. I mean, in terms of triumphs and struggles, I think it's just more along what you said, Ari, of like pro cheerleading, at least. I mean, I'm the host of a pro cheerleading podcast, but it's the elite level of our profession. Like, we work our butts off to get to this point. And so, you know, there aren't that many of us out there that are able to make these teams. And so just, I would say struggle is just getting to that point to be able to say that you've performed at the highest level. And then being recognized for that and respected for that is part of why I started the podcast, at least in terms of just really trying to change the conversation around what being a pro cheerleader actually represents. And that's something that I take pride in now that I'm stepped away from the sport. I want people to recognize it as a sport. I'd love to see us all coming together and pushing for changes that need to happen within our space as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think that, you know, having things like podcasts where you discuss those different type of issues allow people to hear experiences that they don't normally get to hear or even maybe know about. And I think that that's the important thing when it comes to women in sports, in and or out, just involved in sports, is doing what Ari is doing with HighlightHER, telling those stories, right? Being able to elevate our voices and give us a platform. Because even just recently, there's been so many people that have reached out to me and just said, AJ, I had no idea that a woman won a Gold Glove. I won the Gold Glove, 4 years ago? And you know what I mean? And now people are just now hearing about it after 4 years. And I think that that is just a testament to the fact that it's just not being told, right? Those stories aren't being told, and you don't know what you don't know. And, you know, I think being able to continue with podcasts, with what I'm trying to do on my social, with what Ari's doing for all women in sports, is to tell those stories and to offer people the opportunity to dive in, to have what they're interested in. Some people don't even realize how much they love what they love until they see it, right? And I think that the big testament to that is really all women's sports that actually get a chance to be put on TV. You see the viewership rise, you see people wanting to talk about it. And, you know, I think it's that simple. And for me, it's just the hard part, or I guess the struggle that I've dealt with is, you know, just not being recognized, but not just for myself, but my sport of softball as a whole, right? Not being recognized for the achievements that we are achieving, and just giving the proper respect that's due for what we're doing.
It's funny you mention your Gold Glove, because you're the first woman that did that. How
do you not know about that?
Period. But like, what's the responsibility of that? Like, carrying that and being that representation for young girls.
For me, you know, I think the responsibility of having the Gold Glove, it truly made me step up and have to use my voice more, right? And instead of waiting for someone, it got to a point where for so long, you know, you're waiting, you're hoping people would give you this platform, put you on TV. And, you know, after I won the Gold Glove, I really felt like, okay, I'm just not going to wait anymore, right? This door has been opened, and I need people to know that it has been opened. And what can I do about that? Well, if you're not going to talk about it, I'm going to talk about it. And I'm going to talk about it until you get tired of me talking about it and you just talk about it yourself.
And then talk about it some more.
And talk about it some more. And I think but I honestly think that is what it takes. And that's from what I feel like I've seen, that's what has garnered attention or momentum, shall I say, momentum in my sport alone of softball, and just continuing to move forward with the responsibility of letting people know what is happening, using my voice at all times, using my platform at all times, and not being humble. You know, I think for so many people, women, we're told to be humble or act a certain way, handle things with grace. And it's like, no, men get to demand that they're number one, that they're the best ever, they're doing what they're doing. And I'm one of those as well. So pay attention.
I love that. I knew I was going to be hyped. You're going to see a lot of emotion in here because I'm just like,
we both of us are like, yeah.
But it's so, and that's why I have so much respect for you both, because you're not waiting for someone to recognize you. You're creating the platform, you're creating the space, you're allowing your voice to be amplified. And I just think that's the way we got to do it. And in terms of like big ideas that I think will help shape our future as female athletes, is that very thing, is just not waiting for permission slips to get signed and just kind of going for what you know is right, not being afraid to be an advocate for causes that you believe in. And I'll just throw out the big idea that I know that others will speak about later, and so I'll save it for then. But I think unionizing, or just any sort of collective activity to address the issues that are going on in your sport, especially as women, I think that's probably the biggest idea, because if we are actually organized in a way where we can collectively push for the things that we deserve to have, whatever that means, whether that's pay, whatever that looks like, I think that's the big idea that we all will hopefully wrap our minds around and just start getting to work, because I think that will help ensure that we have a sport that is protected, that won't be pushed to the side and ignored any further.
It's really like troubling to me, being in the cheerleading space and seeing what's happening, what's going on, and why people can't take accountability for actually what happened. And I'm not going to dive into that, but I really encourage people out there that if there are issues that are going on within, you can stand up for yourself. All the young girls out there, just know that you and your teammates and the people who are allies to you stand up collectively for what's right, what you believe in, because when you all come together, there's so much strength in numbers. I know it sounds cliche, but there is so much strength with coming together. You might have varying viewpoints of things, but you have a common consensus of what's right. And so I really, really encourage people that when they see something that feels a little off, to really, really join together and make that circle and be like, no, we're not doing this, or yes, we're standing together in honor of this. We see this in the NFL with the pay too. Forget what's going on now, but the pay in the past, not being afraid to risk your spot for the greater good, which I don't think should be on women. I don't think it should be on us to have to do that, but just to make that step in the right direction so that knowing people will have your back. I don't know. It's just, I don't know.
No, it's sad that is a big idea. I mean, that was the other thing that I jotted down, that a big idea is actually to drop the sense of fear, to stand up for the next person, or to be willing to sacrifice, which you shouldn't have to, but unfortunately that might just be the case, to stand up for what's right. And I think, I don't know if it's like that in other sports, maybe AJ, for what you see in terms of people kind of having like that hesitation to speak up, and they kind of just let the brave ones do it. But I'm hoping that the big idea for our space collectively as female athletes is just to push beyond that fear and let your voice just empower you to not give into that, because we got to cut that out, frankly. I mean, that's just my 2 cents on that point.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting. talking about being one of those people that have the courage to step up, because, you know, it definitely is a situation where you don't know what is going to happen on the receiving end. And while, you know, there's so many things that can attest to or that can go to, I'm just speaking even specifically from my own personal experience of this past summer where, you know, everything is taking place in this country with injustice and the different protests, and, you know, me having to go to a majority white team and essentially explain the plight of Black people in this country, to which I felt should be self-explanatory, right? And or nor do I feel like it's my responsibility to discuss it. But, you know, I think that it was really interesting to, in a space where I'm constantly making other people feel comfortable with my presence, right? Because I am a Black athlete and I am around majority white individuals, and there are already stereotypes and stigmas placed on me just by being there in general, by being Black. And, you know, it got to a point this past summer, I was like, I don't care if you're comfortable. This is what's happening. This is what's wrong. This is how it is affecting me. This is how it's affecting my family. If you are someone that cares about me on this field, then you need to step up and care about me off of it as well. And, you know, it got to a point where I really saw people's true colors and true character. And it was sad. It was very discouraging to see those different reactions that I got from different people. And like, I honestly would have thought it would have been overwhelmingly supportive of people being like, oh, absolutely, AJ, you know, I mean, whatever it is you want to do, we're going to do it too. And it wasn't that. And so, you know, you have these situations where your morals, or me speaking of myself, my morals, what I believe in, what I know to be right, was bigger than any image or the media or my teammates even, which is sad to say, because there are a lot of these people I thought were friends, right? And then it comes back and it's like, oh, I guess we're really not that close, huh? But, you know, it's kind of just, it got to a point where this is bigger than all of you. This is bigger than myself, right? At the end of the day, when I walk off of this field, I have to face realities that other people on this team don't have to face. And I'm going to do what I can to elevate those voices and to support those individuals that are facing things that I luckily have not yet had to face, but could be me tomorrow. And you know what I mean? So I think that your courage steps in when you almost have no choice, right? And it just is there. You don't think about it. And because you're doing, you know, it's bigger than you. And you know, at this point, you get to a point where you're just kind of like, there's really no conversation. This is right. This is wrong. And I'm going to go over here. And it really is that simple. And so I think that that's where courage it doesn't even feel courageous. It just feels like doing what's right. And at the end of the day, if you don't support that, my thought process is, I just don't support you. Then we're just not on the same wavelength, and we never will be, because our morals are just set up different. And I think, but the thing is so interesting about that is you get to a point where I think that you feel alone, right? Because you're the only one maybe on your team, or you're the only one in your surrounding area. And then you get this overwhelming amount of support, double, triple the numbers of individuals that you thought would support you, right? And it's like, there are people that love this, that want this, that were waiting for someone to have that courage, that have faced the same experiences that I have. I don't know how many people and their parents have DM'd me or messaged me and just said, AJ, we really appreciate you, all you're doing. My daughter has been facing these racial issues at high school, and she's been able to look to you. And, you know, in those moments, it's like, dang, like, I just changed someone's life and I've never met them. I don't know their name, right? And it's all because of my courage. But in reality, it was always in me. It was me sticking up for what I know is morally right and what I want to change in this world.
And AJ, you always drop those gems. Piggybacking off that, I agree. You cannot lead with fear. Yes. Thank you for joining us, AJ.
Thank you. I am so excited, or so glad that I had the opportunity to talk with you two beautiful, amazing women changing the trajectory of sports. All in all, I have to jump off to talk more about this on another panel. But I was
drop magic everywhere, guys.
I just want to drop gems on everyone I meet. But again, I love you both. I'm so encouraged and inspired by both of you, and keep doing the dang thing. I don't know if I could cuss. So
love you right back, sister. And we will pick up right where you left off. I promise.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you.
But piggybacking off of AJ, I just want to, I always go by the mantra, you can't lead with fear. And so when you step out and you step in the place of what you believe, it's really important to align with the things that are in perfect alignment with you. So don't let anything compromise your viewpoints. Don't let yourself waver from where you are grounded, because then you have no balance, right? So I agree with AJ, and you even being women in sport, being women who are professional cheerleaders or dancers as well, in particular, it rubs a lot of people the wrong way. But as long as you're confident in what you're doing, solid in your intention, and really not lead, like we're cheerleaders, right? We lead,
right.
So we can't be fearful of what's to come of us. And my really, really huge advice to everybody is be unwavering in your pursuit of whatever you want to pursue. So just be unwavering in your plight, be audaciously you, and really, really attack what you want to do as yourself, fully, authentically yourself. So that's what I have for women in sport. Just be bold, be in your face. That's how, you build your brand that way. Be bold and in your face. Like I didn't build my brand by staying quiet in the background. I'm on the front lines of everything. And so I really encourage people out there to do that too.
I could not agree more. Absolutely could not agree more. I mean, we can take questions if people have them, or I think between the two of us, we could definitely keep going.
Yeah,
I'm over here like, we moderating? We doing it?
We have a couple questions, and at the end, if we haven't been able to answer all the questions, we'd love to open up for you to answer a few more. So I'm going to start it off with a question for you, Ari. After HighlightHER reached 100K followers, how do you plan to develop it going forward?
Well, shout out to Rafiq. He's a wonderful ally. He's always showing up whenever there's something with me, and I really appreciate you, Rafiq. I don't have any. Okay, my whole purpose is to storytell and to amplify women's voices. So I'm going to continue doing what I'm doing, authentically me, and doing it the way I want to do it. I'm not the most polished thing ever. I like being your friend. I like sitting down and getting the real humanity out of people and players and talent and athletes. Like, I like getting that realness out of people. So I'm going to continue doing what I'm doing. And you see the passion grows. People talk about it, and people start becoming interested in it, and interest turns into investment. And so that's where I'm coming from. I want to continue doing what I led to do, what I think my journey is, and just going forward with that. And so hopefully we'll get to 1 million soon. I really, really hope so.
Yeah,
you are getting there. You are getting there.
I'm trying, sister. I'm trying.
I think you're gaining a couple more followers today. The Instagram, can you share the Instagram @ for us?
Yeah, so my brand is HighlightHER. It's an extension of Bleacher Report, and it's the women's platform. So we do all girls and women, any sport, any age, ability level. We don't discriminate. We just want to showcase women and girls doing dope things.
And it's at HighlightHER, right? What's the handle at HighlightHER?
HighlightHER. Yeah, you see a lot of cheerleading. It started off as basketball, but it's a lot of cheerleading in there. Just know that I've been working. To put.
You have to sprinkle your influence in there somewhere.
It's like kind of like pouring. It's a little bit beyond sprinkling, but yeah.
Just to add on to that, do you think social media has given you a new way to communicate with people? Like, if you did not have this platform, how do you think you would reach people?
I think honestly, I can give this to Mhkeeba, because she literally, I mean, hey, your podcast literally keeps me going. Literally.
Well, I think social media is I'm finicky about it, but I love operating at least the podcast social media. I think it just made our world so much smaller. And I love seeing the connections, at least even with my base of followers that are interacting with each other. Not to say that they were introduced through me, but it's just so exciting that we can follow each other and stay up to date on what's going on and support one another. I think it's just so dope. And so I think it's only going to continue to grow. I think to be able to share those stories and having social media as a way to connect people. And I mean, I reshare things from HighlightHER all the time. And I just think it's great because it's a way for people to find out about things. You know how these algorithms work. You don't always see the content you want to see, but for ways for us to kind of connect and share the cool things that are going on, the cool people that we're meeting, I think we can thank social media for that for sure.
100%. And with COVID, you can literally just DM somebody to ask them to be on your content and they can Zoom because now everybody knows how to Zoom. So it's not like they have to come in person. Like before, people had to come to our office and we had to set up a whole studio and it was kind of frowned upon if you're doing it virtually. But now it's very, very normal. It's very normal. So you have access to more people.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys both have that platform, and I'll drop Mhkeeba's podcast Instagram in the chat in just a minute here. We have another question from Gabby. She's a 14-year-old female athlete, and she's a huge fan of all three of you. I know AJ's left, but hopefully we'll pass the message on to her. Her question is, do you think with all these people standing up that the NFL will change and respect women?
I will not rest until they do.
Okay. There we go.
Period. I think we absolutely have to go as hard as we've ever gone. Because the line of behavior has just been so out of pocket and it's continued to be. And I don't want to wait for the next hammer to drop, so to speak, or whatever the term is. I'm terrible with those types of slogans. But the point is, I think we are absolutely going to just keep beyond making noise. I do have faith that at the right time, when we really are ready, that we will take the necessary steps to get the rights that we deserve. And I just think as we continue to amplify what's going on and talking about it and showing ways to get involved, that it will just spread like wildfire. Like we're over this story, we're over the storyline, we're over the lack of accountability with the NFL. They have a 50% female fan base, and we have to command and more, period, from all angles. Mm-hmm. The end. Sponsors, fans, cheerleaders, community organizations, like everybody should be knocking on this door of Roger Goodell and the NFL to say, you need to do better, the end. So that's what I'm going to be working on for a long time, probably.
No small feat, yeah.
Sooner than later.
Ari, do you have anything to add to that?
As somebody who came from the NBA space, we stand with you. We're joining our NFL sisters in the fight. A lot of my friends, I'm just being completely, can I say the team, like a team, or do you want to? Okay, so a lot of my friends who are on the Washington football team, I'm joining with them in their plight because it's getting to be a lot, and I just think that that's a really a shame that accountability isn't placed in the right places, and now we're seeing a situation where the first NFL cheerleading squad is dealing with this. So I don't like it, but I don't want to overstep on my NFL sisters. So I'm just here as an ally and here to stand with you guys hand in hand and push it forward.
Great.
I think there's no overstep, and it's wide open. We need all the help and all the
like, and this is gonna, I'm gonna say candidly, even the pay discrepancy from the past, it's alarming to me because I know some of my friends who were at the Jets, they were getting paid what we get paid in one night all week, and I was just like, whoa, like it's mind blowing because we shouldn't have to stand for that. It's a job as well. And so there's so many issues within that. It's so layered, and the fight just has to keep going. It just has to keep going because until all of us are good, none of us are good. That's none of us are good. I saw the check and I was like, well, how you even live? It's not even livable. And a lot of these women sacrifice their life. I see the question. I don't want to overstep, but
go ahead, please.
Why do people push back against the unions and trying to change the way it is? It's because a lot of these girls have trained their entire life to be on these teams, and so you don't want to get to a place like I cheered in the world's most famous arena, right? That's just what it's labeled as. I don't want to say the team because I have a very bad taste in my mouth from it, but cheered there, but that's not in alignment. And so me being so vocal about Black Lives Matter, and I'm looking at them like, y'all can't release a statement. I'm very bothered by that. But I didn't train my whole life to do that. And there are a lot of people who did. And so I think that people, again, you have to weigh in the risk there. You have to weigh in the risk, like, do I really want to be a part of this team, or can I risk it risk my dreams. And there's no right answer for this. There's no wrong answer for this. If this is your priority to be on this team, that is fine. And I respect that. My dream was to be on the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders. Do I have the feet for that? Absolutely not. It's just not, that wasn't going to be a thing. That wasn't reachable for me. But if I had the opportunity to do it, I know that mentality to train your whole life for that. And so that's why people are afraid to join these unions, because they're afraid of the repercussions because of the structure that it is right now.
Yeah, and the power imbalance makes it so that when you see any movement in that direction, how quickly you can be disbanded as a team. I think that also plays into that fear of, if I speak up too loud or if I complain too much, then the opportunity will be, the same point already made, it'll be taken away from me. And so I think that's kind of where we've been stuck in the past, but I just continue to stay positive in my mindset that we're going to get past that so that we can do the work and organize together so to make a meaningful change. Were there other questions? Sorry, and I don't know where we are.
There's actually 2 more questions, so we're just going to finish it up with one more and then hold the rest to open up to everyone. So Gabby, the 14-year-old who asked the question earlier, as well as Terry, who works in gender equality pay, like they're both wondering what they can do, from their different perspectives. Gabby's asking for a kid like herself, and Terry's asking for someone who works in this space, as well as everyone who's working at home. What do you want us to take away from what you're sharing with us?
I think for me, I'm just going to say the conversation continues. I love these speaking opportunities and ways for us to kind of share ideas and information, but let's stay connected, reach out via social media, and let's continue the conversation so that we can figure out, where the synergy is. I hate that word, but I just said it. Where we can figure out just different strengths and different connections and different angles at attacking the same problem. And, to Gabby, the 14-year-old, you're doing a lot just by being present here and caring about these issues. I'm so impressed. Mm-hmm. And I would say just, staying informed. I think it's amazing that you even know about this is happening and you're, eager to get involved. But stay in touch, because I think there's going to be a place for everybody to chip in some way. So the conversation can't end here. So that would be the way I'd answer that one.
I would say a lot of people want to tiptoe around issues. I think you just need to rip the Band-Aid, attack them head on, really have open discussions, especially with people who don't share your similar viewpoints. Discussions that outside of your comfort zone is going to be really important, because you will have teammates, Gabby, that you don't agree with. But you guys can really verbalize your perspectives and come together for a common goal. Especially for you, Gabby, I would say always have your teammates back, though. When it's right, always have your teammates back and stand together if it feels good for you. But always be educated on what's going on in the world. You guys are doing the right thing, being here and really looking into things. But just be educated, be equipped with the information that you need in order to make a educated opinion around it. And so you know how to stand up for what you want to stand up for. And so when somebody's like, why would you want to do that? This is why. Like when people are like, well, Black Lives Matter is this, that, and the third. I'm like, listen, let me tell you why I support my humanity, stop trying to make excuses why my humanity doesn't matter. So I can stand in that confidently because I've educated myself on it. I live it. And I'm comfortable talking about it. Even if I'm not, I find comfort in discomfort because I know that I have to make change. So that's where I'm coming from with that. So if you don't get anything else from this, is be informed about what's going on, be present, lead without fear, and have your teammates back when it's right.
And I would just add teammates of all sports. I think one of the beautiful takeaways from today is that you're hearing from people from different sports than your own. And I think the more that you broaden your perspective of what you should care about and reach beyond your team, you're reaching beyond yourself, reaching beyond your team, reaching beyond your sport even, and just supporting female athletes together. I think there's just so much power in that. And I hope people take that away as well.
And then you can have you can share in the kiki. Me and AJ always kiki on the side. We can be in the DMs talking. It's fun. Yes. It's fun to have a sisterhood here. We're a sisters. So just know that there's power in that sisterhood no matter what sport. She's right. She's right.
Well, thank you both
I don't want to
for
leave.
joining us. Yeah, you don't actually have to leave. You can join us at the end, and we'll continue to answer some questions and continue to open up this conversation. I really appreciate how active everyone has been in the chat. So we'll keep
and shout out to Autumn. She was one of my teammates too. Shout out to your New York out there. I see her in there, but yeah, multiple people.
Yeah, so we're about to bring on Bridget Case and Kristan Ware, and we'll bring back Mhkeeba and Ari back at the end for more questions. So thank you all for participating.
Thank you.
If Bridget and Kristan, if you can join us, we're ready for you. Yeah. Hi.
All right, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Awesome.
Just give one more second for Kristan. Hi, Kristan.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
That's the party line for starting a Zoom call.
Hey, Bridge.
What's up?
Just gonna introduce you
God,
both.
my video's working. I love your background, girl. It looks good.
Thanks, I made it myself.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna take a second to introduce your topic and introduce you both. We're so lucky to have you coming speak on with us now. So this section is a focus on mental health, led by Bridget Case and Kristan Ware. And Bridget Case is an accomplished sports journalist as the creator, producer, and host of AfterOrangeSlices Podcast. Bridget continues to revolutionize the media industry. Bridget is also the co-host and executive producer of Turbo Talk Podcast and Turbo Talk Live TV on Twitch with the Super Bowl champion Robert Turbin. She gained media attention for her interviews with Ken Jeffrey, Felix Hernandez, Des Bryant, Michael Bennett, and many more. Bridget was an Oregon cheerleader for 4 seasons during the Oregon football reign and game captain her senior year. She cheered in 3 BCS bowls, including the Rose Bowl, Fiesta Bowl, and the 2011 BCS National Championship game. Bridget later pursued her dream of dancing at the professional level and was an NFL cheerleader for the San Diego Chargers. Bridget is a passionate advocate for mental health and spreads awareness through her social media. In her spare time, Bridget takes her 2 dogs out for trail runs and hikes. Thank you, Bridget. You all have so many accomplishments. I'm like struggling to read through all of them.
I feel bad. You don't have to read through the whole thing.
I like the dog part.
I know. I was like, oh, I know she's reading my real bio. That's coming. They're gonna hear the dogs.
Oh, it's totally fine. I know Mhkeeba had gone to 2 Super Bowls, and I don't know how to read Roman numerals, so I got hooked up on that.
I still don't. I look up every time. Yep. No.
Yeah, I should have. Well, Kristan, we'll get to your bio and all your accomplishments and everything you're along with. All right. So from growing up in a military family to graduate from the University of South Carolina with a degree in marine science, in her most recent eye-opening experience as an NFL Miami Dolphins cheerleader, Kristan Ware has been instilled with an empathetic heart, humble spirit, along with the insight and courage to speak out with boldness, overcoming adversities, all while staying true to convictions. After 3 seasons, God led Kristan turned in her uniform and walked away from the NFL. Her obedience has paved a path for her to make a positive difference in the world and spread compassion, hope, love, and unashamed faith in Jesus Christ to inspire all. Kristan is currently working as a wilderness therapy lead field instructor with at-risk youth. While backpacking all throughout the Blue Ridge Mountains, she's empowering kids and teens to overcome trauma and toxic behaviors. Kristan also owns an art studio, Studio 414, specializing in resin pours and canvas paintings. Throughout all the above, as well as inspirational speaking, teaching master dance workshops, and being a powerful writer of poetry on her blog, Cheering for God, she is sure to leave a lasting impression on the great nation. Thank you so much for joining us, Kristan. And I'm going to pass it along to you to introduce yourselves and kind of just kick it off with your triumphs and trials throughout your career in sports.
Oh, Kristan, we can't hear you. She's starting, that's why. It says you're muted. Oh,
Can you hear me?
yeah, I can hear you. Yep, we're good.
Is it better? Okay.
Yeah,
If I lose connection, just keep letting me know. I'll come back in.
you got it.
Yeah, girl, do you just want me to like jump right into like what we discussed on the phone
Yes.
yesterday?
No, let's do it. Because I mean, we have so much. I feel like
Yes.
we're gonna run out of time if we don't.
I know. Okay. So for whoever's listening, Bridget and I definitely went through our own like crazy personal trials as an NFL cheerleader. And obviously that's not painting a negative picture. We're just speaking honestly about the things that we went through. And I want to keep it more focused on the toxic patterns that can exist in the environment, especially in multi-billion-dollar companies like the NFL. The main thing that I want to talk about is gaslighting. Gaslighting is an abusive, controlling tactic that involves anti-accountability, victim blaming, and and also like intimidating fear. This will obviously lead to mental illness. Mental illness, I mean, you name it, depression, eating disorders, low self-esteem. And then of course, the most common one that we hear about, especially in women's sports, is anxiety. This obviously stems from the pressure of performance, the pressure of this always changing, inconsistent, beauty standards of our society. It's this keeping up factor that can really lead us into so many realms of anxiety. And if not addressed, it will also lead to physical manifestations, right? So as a human, God solely designed us to adapt, right? So when we're in this hostile work environment, our psyche is doing everything it can to keep us safe, right?
Survive.
But it's a survival mechanism. And all the while that our mind and our psyche are overworking to keep us safe, our body is constantly keeping the score. So this can show up in headaches, muscle aches, chronic fatigue, where you used to be able to last like a whole, 5-minute dance routine and kick line. Now you're barely getting within the first 30 seconds. This emotional stress that lasts over a period of time is very dangerous to your immune system and your overall health and your body. Bridget, we're going to go through our personal examples, like words that were spoken over us, So just gaslighting does an amazing job at distorting the truth with lies and manipulation. In a toxic work environment with gaslighting involved, you're looking at such an environment where you do not have permission to speak freely, right? And I know that hits a lot of athletes that are listening right now. You're here to be seen and perform, not to be heard. It is performance over the person, right? It's the image over the beating heart behind the uniform. And so obviously this is pushing the agenda of a controlling tactic to basically have ownership over you. So here we go, Bridget. I come to you with a valid concern. You're my director. And I'm like, I didn't really like that you put your hands on me and dragged me down the staircase. Or, I really believe that we work really hard and we do deserve to have a raise. What are some responses like, oh, you're too sensitive.
Yeah, you're too sensitive. You know what you signed up for. If you don't want to be here, there are thousands of other girls who will take your place.
Stop creating drama. You should be wanting to do this for free. You ungrateful, disrespectful work. Yeah. Exactly. So what that falls in line with as far as red flags with gaslighting is they belittle your pain, whether it's an injury, whether it's emotions, whether it's actual valid concerns. They twist it and put the blame on you. What did we say at the beginning? Anti-accountability.
And you feel crazy. Like I remember during that period of time that I felt like, oh, I must be crazy because no one else is feeling all these things because no one is talking to each other.
Right. And obviously like another red flag is isolation, right? So, before where they respected you enough to at least have a private meeting with you to say, oh, you need to learn how to take constructive criticism, even though it was really completely destructive and just plain criticism. They are now publicly attacking you. It's harsh criticism so that your teammates will also change their perception of you further to isolate you. So now you question your own reality. You start to question your own sanity. Like, I am crazy. And that type of questioning your own worth, questioning your own sanity, that is the danger of gaslighting. Because now as a woman, the hardest thing you can ever go through. Go ahead.
There are so many signs of it, whether somebody's physically telling you, like I had a coach, because, you know, my experience in college was very similar to my NFL experience, but I had a very abusive coach in college who literally said to me, no one on the team likes you. And she told every single girl on my team to not be friends with me because I was a bad influence. And so so sometimes it comes out in those clear, like, what the hell? That's not something that anybody should ever say. Or it could be something that's a little bit more ambiguous. And you kind of have to figure out where the underlying factor is there. I think, oh, there we go. And I think that's the scary part of it, is not really understanding when no, you're not crazy. This is not okay. And they're disguising it as it's a passive aggressive behavior.
Mm-hmm. And passive aggressiveness can lead to physical aggressiveness.
Right.
And you are now trying to survive in an even more retaliated, toxic, hostile work environment. Anytime you try to challenge such a broken system, you are literally putting a target on your back because you have now become the problem.
Yep.
And you feel alone. And this is my favorite phrase. My favorite phrase is, look at what we've done for you. Okay.
Oh my God.
Listen, if that does not scream the revelation that what they have done for you has nothing to do with you and everything to do with their need to control you
and justify their actions.
Yeah, double. And also in the environment, you will see not only a lack of voices being heard, false accusations, isolation, you know, all these red flags, belittling your pain. You will also see a double standard. And it's very evident in women in professional sports today. There is a double standard between how women are treated in sports and how men are treated in sports. It has been consistent and persistent, and it's getting worse. But I truly am thankful that the conversation is continuing on. But this is the point that I want to make, because when I'm sure you've gotten the same thing, Bridget, when we've tried to speak out, it's like, but you should be thankful, right? Like, I mean, it made you stronger. And I just posted this, but I was like, yes, although that is true, I am thankful for it. I do not regret it. God led me along the way. My relationship with him got close. I am thankful, but that's not the point. The point is I didn't need to be made stronger. I needed to be safe in my work environment. And the NFL consistently fails women in the NFL. Mm-hmm. So that's me getting like, ugh. Okay.
Oh, I know. Oh my gosh. Do you remember last night I was getting so heated and so fired up. And I think I hate using this word, but it's completely true. When I think of what I went through and what other women go through, and we don't realize what happened until years down the line, because it took me a while to really process everything that I had felt. It's brainwashing. We're brainwashed to believe that what we are doing because we love it, because we love to dance, because we love to cheer, because we love the NFL. And that's a reason enough. It doesn't matter. I read something today. It was so, like, one of my mentors, Heather Monahan, she had posted something about, oh God, I can't remember what it was, but it's basically like, if you do the work, you should be compensated. Doesn't matter who it's for.
That's like
whatever,
a basic human right.
It's a basic human right. And I know this is
freedom of speech, freedom of labor, freedom of
speech, freedom of labor, freedom of what to wear, everything. And I think,
freedom of religion.
Yes, freedom of religion. And we had talked about this yesterday. I think social media has changed things a little bit, but I know at least back when I was cheering, we weren't even allowed to have our social media platforms say that we cheered for the Chargers. We weren't allowed to do they owned us. And I think that, like you said, the double standard of players can, go out and be their own ambassadors and they own their identity. Well, no, the NFL or our specific team owns our identity. And that's where I think we get so confused, because we think, oh, we signed a contract. That means X, Y, Z. No, just because you signed a contract doesn't mean what they're doing is right, and you can still fight those things. But I think at the time that's very hard to see.
Well, you hit it perfectly, which brainwashed. We are literally groomed by the NFL. I mean, I'm literally watching these 18-year-old girls make the team. They are literally being taught that their voices do not matter because we are going through sexual harassment training, and the director themselves are groping us and having us read a script that basically says, ha, 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 oops, your hand slipped. Like, our goal as a cheerleader to defend ourselves against sexual molestation, sexual harassment, is to be the good, nice girl. Honey, nice is not going to prevent you from showing up for yourself when you need it the most. And so I think like what we really need to do in these women, and like what I know we're both so on fire about, is empowering women. Say yes, and the courage will follow. Your fight for the good and for what's noble has to outweigh your love for an image. And it sucks. I mean, we've been training since we were 3. We've been, oh my, it's terrifying. I remember being a rookie and like literally shaking. My palms were shaking before
constant fear. And that no one should feel that way in a team environment where you're supposed to be taken care of.
Well, and I think that's what like hits my heart the most, is like, what personally for me, when I made the Cheerleader. Now remember, we're all on our own journey of where is our identity coming from? Where is our worth coming from? Where is our value coming from? You know, I was on that journey, but when I went into the NFL, I thought I made it. I'm safe now.
Right?
I am safe now.
Everything's
the NFL would do nothing to hurt me. Yeah. They're the most known organization in the world. There is no freaking way that they're going to lay their hand on me. There's no way they're going to abuse me. There's no way. No, I thought, again, we go back to gaslighting. I thought I was the crazy one because I was challenging this system, and that nobody's really
don't support you in that. You talk to your teammates about anything, then they'll go, because everyone is out for themselves, because you have to be to survive in this toxic culture, that they'll go to your coach and say whatever you're saying as if it's some terrorist, thing. And it's disgusting how you're supposed to be in a sisterhood and nobody can listen or take care of each other or stand up together. Because guess what? If everyone on the team could stand together and bring whatever the concern is to the director, to the organization, they're not going to fire everybody. But we've not been taught how to communicate with each other and support each other. We literally just naturally want to defend ourselves, no matter what it costs a teammate.
That goes back to the fear that they put in us. I mean, it literally goes back to your first day given that contract. It goes back to fear, regardless of what rookie, veteran, however many years, it goes back to fear. And the only way the system is going to change is when, just like you said, Bridget, they can't hit a herd, right? Yeah. So you link arm in arm, you begin your journey of brave, whether you're shaking, whether you're crying, whether your palms are sweating, it doesn't matter, as long as you begin to stand up for what's right. Like, you can walk away from being a cheerleader at the very end of your road. And then I've even spoken to 40-year-olds who, when I ask what words were spoken over them, they hang up the phone. There's still so much trauma that they're holding in their body. And I don't want that for women. I want them to be set free. I want them to be liberated. I want them to know the value of their voice. And like one of my mentors, April Burnett, she said, it was such a revelation for me. She said, the NFL uniform was not what gave you value. You give the uniform value. And that's what I want these women to know, is that you don't owe them anything. You worked your butt off to get to that. You competed against hundreds and thousands of women, and you were one of 40 to make it. You don't owe them jack squat. So when they try to say, look at all we've done for you, be like, you can't easily replace me. I am not just a pretty face. I am more than this uniform. And I am supplying a community outreach. That's what we need to talk about. The midline celebrity that cheerleaders are, we are like the mom. We are the glue of the NFL. Constantly in outreach, constantly making a difference. Overseas to our military, active football players hardly do that.
No.
This falls on the NFL cheerleaders.
Most of the outreach, every event is all the cheerleaders are there. Maybe one or two players, usually not a star, usually a young guy or somebody.
Right. It's
but we are always there, not getting paid for our time for that. Yep. No, that's all because you love your team. And I think, again, it's that fear of, if I don't, do exactly what I'm told, then I'm a failure. And that fear then comes out,
or I'm weak.
Yes, I'm weak. Exactly. And that fear for me came out in a binge eating disorder, in severe depression, in feeling so lonely because by the time I was in my last year with the Chargers, an old roommate of mine had told everyone in the locker room, they were all congregating, say, don't talk to Bridget. And I'm like, man, this happened in college. Now this is happening here. That's insane. And so my mental health went
petty.
Oh my God, it's so petty. But my mental health, I just remember when I hung up my palms, yes, I felt this huge sense of relief, but I also felt like, who the heck am I? Because this whole period of time, I've been Bridget, the Charger girl, and they've controlled my identity. They've told me I'm nothing else besides, a huge moneymaker for this organization. So I had such a hard time figuring out what value I gave to the world when I was out on my own. 2016 was the hardest year of my life. I was crying constantly. I was, constantly thinking suicidal thoughts because I didn't know who I was anymore. And I felt abandoned in that sense. Even though I had purposely left the team and I was happy about it, I felt this weird sense of abandonment because they never took care of me. They never gave back what I gave to them. And I had this brainwashed sense that, the only way I'm secure, the only way I have value is when I'm with the NFL. And that's so untrue. And I think that we have to change our way of thinking in realizing what we can accomplish when we're not on the field, when we're not in practice, when we're not at a game, because we're told, we always would say, it's a part-time job, but a full-time commitment, right? So I think they sell themselves on saying, we have a teacher on the team. We have a this on the team. We have a this on the team. And it's like, but do you really? Because all you let us be is this NFL cheerleader.
The cheerleader.
Exactly. Yep. And I think that's for me where I really struggled with my depression because, one, I didn't know how to handle those symptoms. Two, I felt so alone because all of my teammates, and not all, I'm exaggerating, but most of my teammates,
we understand.
And it's mostly, like we were talking about this last night, it's mostly that together, everyone will kind of deny, but then when you're one-on-one with a teammate, they're, yes,
it's locker room talk,
exactly.
Everyone's brave in the locker room.
Yep, exactly. And because I was standing up for, people, oh my gosh, I just remember all of my teammates, I was in a car accident my last year, and everyone going to my coach saying that I was faking this injury, and I had a severe concussion, and it was bad. But it's that thing where we start to go insane, and that's why I'm so passionate about speaking out about mental health, because I had teammates say, I was taking my crazy pills for that's what made me crazy, because I was on antidepressants, and I'm still on antidepressants, best thing ever for me. And I think we need to understand that we have so much value besides, our uniform, our dance routine, whatever it is, because that's where we start spiraling downward into depression, dealing with anxiety. And like you said, it manifests physically. My body changed dramatically right after I retired, just because it was like my body was in shock after all of that.
Wow. That was a lot, Bridget. Every step of the way, I was with you in 2017. Mm-hmm. In 2007, I was a year after you, girl. I wish we were friends then. But I want to make a point, and this is where, obviously, personally for me, my faith comes in, and it's because self-respect, self-value, self-worth all starts in the home. Mm-hmm. And this is why the toxic culture of cheerleading can repeat itself decades after decades, is because I don't mean this in a negative way. I am anti being replaceable, but there's another 18-year-old that wants to be in that uniform, that worked her butt off to get there. It's the highest level of dance you can get to. Of course, you're going to find another girl. Of course you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted to say that through all of this, when you this is going to be funny. Okay, when you're looking at a cucumber, you're not yelling at it because it's not a cheeseburger, right? Like if you want a cheeseburger, you go and eat a cheeseburger. You don't try to convince the cucumber that it's a freaking cheeseburger. Mm-hmm. And what I'm trying to say is that I truly do hold a lot of compassion and patience for the cheerleaders that are still fearful, because everyone has their own brave journey and their own courage journey. And all I'm saying is that if you're not willing to speak and support publicly, then just maybe you're not ready to actually make the change. And that is okay.
Exactly.
But all I'm saying is you can only secretly complain about something for so long before you begin to become part of the problem. And I don't want girls to repeat history out of fear. I want you to choose whatever faith you have. Choose faith over fear. And, like I say before, before we open up to questions, Bridget, remember we had those steps that we wanted to share with people who are currently in the thick of it. So let's do that real quick, and then we'll give it to the floor for questions. So just to recap, just because you address something, it doesn't mean you're argumentative or disrespectful. Forget the manipulating lies. Just because you are speaking facts does not make you a negative person.
Yep.
Men speak facts all the time, and they are called leaders. We too are leaders. We too can step up for what's right. So if you are in the thick of it, like you're currently on a team, or you're in a workplace, or you're even in a relationship, just going to touch on that because gaslighting is everywhere.
Oh yeah.
The very first step you need to do is link up with the trusted support system. And 99% of the time, it's not going to be a teammate. It is not going to be a girl that is wearing the same uniform as you. You may have to reach out to either Bridget, Mhkeeba, Amanda Ross, people who have walked these very boots that you are walking in, me, whoever you connect with, to see if this is actually what you're going through. Step 2, this is the scary part, collect evidence. If they call you to the meeting room to have an interview and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so scared, ask if you can record the conversation. I know your heart is already beating because you're like, yeah, they'll fire us right on the spot. Try. If they say no, they have something to hide. Within collecting evidence, timestamp everything, bring a journal to practice. During water breaks, if you get one, we hardly got one, but if you get one, put notes in your phone of what they have said to you, what they've spoken to you, so your support system can know what's happening. And, the very last, but definitely not least, speak up for what's noble. Expect retaliation, expect vindictiveness, expect a very scary road, but no matter the outcome, you can lay your head down at night knowing that you chose to stand up for what was right and what was noble, not even for yourself, but for the lives of others, not currently on the team, but for all the hers to come. I always say this fight was never against the NFL. I am for it, but I am more importantly for the girl that's going to come next, who's going to hold my position. I will fall on my sword before I let another girl go through what I went through. And I know every girl that has spoken out shares the same compassion towards the women out there who are currently in this situation. And, that's the amazing part of God is yes, we didn't need to be made stronger, but here we are. It's not our responsibility to hold the burden of the ignorance of Roger Goodell in the NFL. But again, here we are. So we have to choose our hard. You either remain silent and deal with mistreatment and abuse for the rest of your years, or you choose the other hard, which is to speak up, stand alone, but know that you stood up with integrity, fighting for what is noble, and you will go down alone or with allies, that you stood up for something that was morally good for the better of the future of the NFL.
And we're here for you when that happens.
You are not alone. Yeah. I love you, Bridget. That was awesome. Good job. Perfect.
Thank you.
I guess we're ready for questions.
Yeah, we're ready to open it up. If anyone has any questions, please pop them into the chat. But we really appreciate level of sincerity that you're bringing to this conversation, sharing like your mental health journeys. I know that that's not easy, and we appreciate that today. Maybe the you from, like you said, 2016 couldn't have done this, but really appreciate
no way. There's no way. I could have never shared. And it's crazy to me thinking about, I'm like, wow, I can share a complete 180 because I think also just, we were trained speaking at whatever we're at. It almost felt like we even went to Starbucks. We were trained to control our responses. And now it's like, whatever.
It was the perfect performance. And it's crazy to think that we literally helped the NFL make a profit off of the deception of perfection. Exactly. We were there. We hands on hips, smiles on lips, like waterproof mascara held back our tears, and lipstick held back our frown. Yeah. That's what it is. We're professionally trained.
So what does the work you're both doing look like now within this sphere?
Actually, we were just talking last night.
Sorry.
She asked what does the work look like for us in this sphere. I was just saying that we were just talking last night about working on something. I don't know.
Well, we're excited.
A project, and Mhkeeba and I are also working on a project to come as well. There's many projects coming.
So do you have any cue for people who are allies on this call? What can they do to help people? Maybe they have a family member who's involved in a sport that demands this level of, what does it demand? It demands you to be gaslit, I guess is the best way to put it. What can they do if they see their friend or family member going through this? What can they do to help them?
I would start by saying, knowing you're not alone.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think that just starting by saying, knowing that they're not alone and that you're not crazy, because that's what I struggled with most, was just feeling like my feelings weren't valid. I wasn't supposed to have those feelings. And so I think that I would have had more clarity in how to stand up for myself in a better way if I understood that my feelings were valid. So being an ear and just letting them know that this is not okay, what's happening, is good, because that's why I think so many teammates are afraid to band together. So I think it starts with the validation.
Do you want to answer that as well, Kristan? Oh, I think we lost her. Just give it to you. I know this is.
Sorry, I'm here.
Yeah, do you want to answer that question as well?
I think Bridget said it perfectly. I know when you're in it, because I went through an in it situation, right? I did reach out to my mentor. I did tell my family everything. And because I thought the NFL was for me, I fought against their support. And so the greatest thing that ever happened to me was patience and prayer, and leaving room for God to work in people's lives, leaving room for self-growth to happen without it being forced. Because you have to remember, like, these women, these men, they are literally in an environment where they are being controlled. So to give them the
I think we lost her again.
You guys, no, but I completely
really fun that keeps happening. I'm sorry. Just giving them the honor to choose, having patience for them. I don't know what else you heard, but there you go.
Well, and patience is good, because I think, sometimes I was so hard on myself for why couldn't I do this? Why? And you know what? If you're out of it, that's okay. It's not your fault. All right. I'm 99% sure from whatever you're going through, it's not your fault. And so if it takes you a while to figure that, forgive yourself. It starts with forgiveness.
And it takes years to deprogram yourself. You literally have to be undone. And during the undoing, you will land yourself into your real identity and your real value and your true worth. And you will discover that, whether your brave journey started years ago or you're hoping for your brave journey to start soon, that regardless of where you are on the timeline, your brave is still your brave. And your story does matter, and your name matters. And I have hope for the women who are still wearing the NFL, again, we're not against you, we're for you. And we may speak boldly about the red flags, but it's because I wanted someone to be there for me. I wanted someone to tell me the red flags because I didn't know that there was a lack of boundaries. I didn't know that there was a lack of professionalism. I didn't know that they were breaking the law. I just didn't know.
Yeah.
And so now I know, and I want you to know too.
Just because you signed a contract does not mean it's legal, right? They find the loopholes to do that thing. So go through your contract. And that's the thing, is I started doing that, and people were saying things to my coach, and I have the complete right to look through my contract. But if you need a lawyer, take it to a lawyer. If you have a family member who's a lawyer,
that's what I did.
Contract. Exactly.
We'll be speaking with a lawyer shortly as well.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Good. Perfect.
So we have a question here from Naboka. She's asking, do you have any recommendations for books or blogs that have helped you in this journey to speaking up and advocating for yourself and all the others?
My blog.
Perfect.
Yeah, there you go.
I'll link it.
My blog is just www.kristanann.com. It's called Cheering for God. Personally, for me, I was a cheerleader for Jesus Christ before I was ever a cheerleader for the Miami Dolphins. And I am faith-based, but I am mostly like empowering you, and your value is in there somewhere, and I'm going to help you find it in any way. But yeah, it's a blog. I share poetry on my Instagram from it. But yeah, it's all about using your voice.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm all about that. And I'm relaunching my new podcast season in March, but that's mostly like my focus is empowering people through mental health, through talking about their mental health struggles and opening up and being free and vulnerable, whatever realm they come from, mostly in sports. So I would just
I'm writing a book, and I hope it comes out eventually. And I hope that will help as well. If you want to donate, I'm financially paused on it. Plug.
And just one more question. What advice would you give to a 14-year-old listening to this conversation? I guess in general, anyone who has aspirations to be a professional dancer or to be a female athlete.
Don't let this scare you. This should not scare you. This should empower you and excite you about the future of this industry. And yes, it is scary, but start speaking up now. Start making the change before you get there. Because I think once you've really developed a strong identity and you head into one of these organizations, they know, I'm getting Bridget, who is the strong and powerful individual, and not just Bridget, the girl who's going to jump into a uniform and do whatever we want, be a puppet. I think it's so important right now to work on your confidence and work on developing those skills and learn, just get educated on everything going on, and don't let it scare you, because change will happen. I'm so confident in that change will happen. And I just I truly believe that God's not going to just let this industry shatter into a million pieces. Something is going to happen, and we're getting to that breaking point. And then
Amen.
will be this beauty. Yeah.
Amen. And like Bridget said, don't let this scare you. Let this inform you.
Yeah.
Don't become cynical. Don't become cynical of, NFL cheerleading, because it truly is extraordinary. Some people call me contradictive because I literally say being an NFL cheerleader was the best job I ever had. I was able to use every single gift that God gave me, and I did it well. And I chose joy and spreading light over any trial that I faced. It was truly extraordinary. And this is the advice that I would give beyond that is learn boundaries.
Yeah.
If you're 14 years old, learn boundaries. The younger you can get it intact with you, the better. Second, I would say know where you will compromise and where you won't. And this is all about staying true to who you are. This is all about staying true to your morals and your values, and staying true to your convictions. Knowing before you go into anything, before you go into a classroom, before you date someone, before you go into any type of job interview, what am I willing to compromise on, and what is a draw? What is a boundary line for me, a line in the sand that I will not go there? And last but not least, I would say never let a compliment go to your head, and never let rejection go to your heart, because you will ride this life like a roller coaster, and you will get sick and you will vomit. You have to have some sort of identity foundation. For me, Jesus Christ. For you, whatever it is, you have to have a foundation that does not make you do this, and you can remain steady and know your worth regardless of what people say about you, because people are going to talk, whether you're a saint or whether you're a rebel. People are going to talk. You can't please the whole crowd. And take it from a girl who almost died trying to please the whole crowd. You can never do it. So just go ahead and go in knowing that no matter what, you're going to be true to who you are. They either like you or they hate you. It's not your problem.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's so powerful. We just want to move along for a final question for Bridget. I know Kristan had a chance to talk about this as well. As Bridget, what did you love about being an NFL cheerleader?
Well, that's what I was going to say is I really want people to understand that it is okay. Like Kristan said, it's okay to say that I loved it and it was the best time of my life, but it was also the worst time in my life. Like, that is okay. But the problem is that people don't always know how to respond to that, or they'll be like, well, why did you keep doing it? Well, if you were this mistreated, oh, I heard this, then why would, you know what I mean? Why? And I'm like, you will never understand. It's my journey, my experience. You can't understand. It's not your business to understand. But I think coming up with like defense mechanisms or responses to people is really important, because people ask me all the time, like, well, if it was that bad, why did you do whatever? Because there was so much good in it. Being able to dance at the professional level was a lifelong dream of mine. Oh my gosh. And the people you get to meet, I mean, going to Saint-Tropez, France was just like so cool. And I think there are just things that obviously I really do miss. You know, I miss going out on that field on Sundays and having that feeling like during a primetime game. And it's really magical. And just knowing that you were chosen out of so many people you feel special. So there are so many positives. And I think that's why we want to inspire change, is because there is so much good here. It just needs to be rebuilt. We need a remodel.
Yeah. And just because there's good doesn't mean that there's not room for improvements. Any person you meet has complained about their boss, complained about this. Like, if we cancel culture, if we cancel or ban NFL cheerleading just because there's problems, we will literally be banning every single business in America.
Yep.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's pointless.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your time. And if you're able to hang on for a second, we'd love to open up for more questions at the end, and you can chat with the rest of the panelists.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much, Bridget. I love you.
I know.
Thank you. We'd love to welcome Amanda Ross and Sharon Vinick to our virtual stage.
Hi.
Hi, Sharon. How are you?
Hi there.
Amanda here. Oh, hi, Amanda. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thank you. We're so excited for you all to close out this conversation. Our next conversation includes Know Your Rights and Unions. Athletes will be empowered to take action against workplace injustices and learn more about unions and workplace law. So we're starting off with Sharon, and if she looks familiar, she made some appearances in the documentary, so we're so happy to have her. Sharon is a partner at Libby Vinick Burrell Hames, LLP, as a plaintiff's employment lawyer. Sharon has represented individuals in cases alleging claims for discrimination on the basis of race, gender, sexual orientation, natural origin, age, and disability. She has also represented numerous women bringing claims of sexual harassment or discrimination on the basis of pregnancy. And while it is not her focus of her practice, Sharon has been very successful in litigating wage and hour cases. In representing employees, Sharon has litigated cases for private arbitration, state and federal courts, and the United States Supreme Court. No small thing. Thank you. We're so excited to have you here. And bring on Amanda. Amanda Ross, she's the founder and executive director of Dream Big, Inc., where she empowers youth to be the best versions of themselves with an emphasis on supporting minority children. She founded Dream Big in 2018 as she completed her 5th season as an NFL cheerleader and finished her master's degree in education and school counseling. Amanda is a school counselor, and she was an NFL cheerleader with the Baltimore Ravens for 5 years. Amanda served as Miss Maryland, United States 2014, where she used her platform to encourage students to stand up against bullying and discuss the importance of education and literacy. She's a graduate of Morgan State University and received her master's degree from Loyola University, Maryland. Thank you so much for joining us, Amanda.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to share the stage with so many amazing women.
Yes, I'm delighted to be with you also with an impressive group of women.
Thank you both. I'm going to give you the stage and I'll hop back on for the question and answer stage.
So Amanda, if you don't mind, maybe I'll start.
Yeah, that sounds good.
As was explained, I'm a lawyer. I had the distinct pleasure of representing Lacey T in the lawsuit that was brought against the Oakland Raiders on behalf of the Raiderettes for wage theft. And what wage theft means simply is that people were working and they were not getting paid for their work. What I want to talk about are kind of broader issues about your legal rights as an athlete, whether you are, regardless of what field your athletic abilities are in, whether you're a cheerleader or you're actually on the field. In the United States, it is required that people are paid for their work. You cannot do an unpaid internship. You can't volunteer your time if it's a job. If you're a student and you're participating as a student, that's entirely different. But if you're actually working as an athlete, you have to be paid for your work. And you have to at least be paid minimum wage in whatever state you're working. It varies from state to state, although I just saw that the United States Congress passed some new legislation that's going to raise the national minimum wage to at least $15 an hour. But one way or another, you have to be paid, and you have to be paid for all of the hours that you work. So if you are an athlete and you have practice time that you have to log, you have to be paid for that. If you're a cheerleader and one of your jobs, and I say jobs very specifically, so if one of your jobs is to spend time signing pictures or meeting with players before a game or meeting with fans before a game, that is all work that you have to be paid for. And you have to be paid at least minimum wage. The other thing is that if you are told when to show up and what to do, in other words, as a cheerleader, what dances you're going to do, how they're going to be done, when they're going to be done, what you're going to be wearing, as an athlete, when the games are, when the practice sessions are. In other words, if you don't have the ability to pick and choose when you're going to work, you have to be paid as an employee as opposed to an independent contractor. And that's really important because it makes a huge difference in terms of your wages. If you're an independent contractor, you pay significantly more taxes than if you are a wage W-2 employee. In addition to being paid for your time, all of your expenses have to be paid. So being a cheerleader, and I learned this from my client Lacey and also from one of the women on the New York Jets flight squad, who I also had the pleasure of representing, there's a lot of stuff to be that beautiful and glamorous as a cheerleader. There are pom-poms that you have to wear. Some of the teams require that you have a specific kind of manicure or color your hair in a particular way. Any of the expenses that are associated with the work you do, you have to be paid for. You do not have to carry those expenses on your own. All of these things should be in written contracts that you're given. And there was a discussion on the last panel about looking at your contract and trying to figure out what's in it so that you know what your rights are. That is so important. And I tell you this in the context of the case that we did on behalf of Lacey. So when Lacey got her contract from the NFL, it had all these provisions in it that she didn't understand, okay? One of the provisions, for example, is that she wouldn't be paid anything until the end of the season. That's not legal in California, and I'm sure it's not legal in any other state in this country. But Lacey didn't understand those provisions of the contract. So one of the things that's very important is when you get these contracts, sit down and read them. If you don't understand what they say, you can ask the person who gave you the contract. You can talk to a lawyer. You can consult with friends. Your contracts are things that you are welcome to share with other people and talk to about them. The contracts themselves are not supposed to be confidential. When you sign those contracts, those are a binding legal document. They bind you and they bind whatever team you're working for, whether you're working as a cheerleader or an actual athlete on the field or in the ring. Whatever you do is bound by that contract. So it's very important that you understand the provisions of the contract. And then the last thing that I want to mention is the last panel obviously was about mental health issues and how people felt about being harassed or exploited. There are laws in this country that protect people against harassment and discrimination. They don't protect you, sadly, against bullying. But if you feel that you're being sexually harassed or racially harassed, or you think you're being discriminated against based upon your gender or your race or your sexual orientation or any of those things, I urge you to talk to somebody besides your friends. You should go talk to a lawyer who can give you some advice about what you can do. As someone who litigates these cases all the time and tries to help women come forward and try to litigate their claims, I know how extremely challenging it is for people, especially young women who don't necessarily have a lot of experience with these issues. But as someone who's also a progressive advocate for change, I also know that change doesn't happen unless people come forward. So when Lacey came to us, she was at the very beginning of her contract with the NFL. She was very fearful that if she came forward, she'd be ostracized by her team members and people would be just furious with her and there would be no change. And we spent a lot of time talking to Lacey. And as you heard, if you saw the movie, she was frightened and she did come forward and she was sadly ostracized. But it also empowered her to feel like she made the change she wanted to see in the world. And it's only by people like Lacey coming forward that we start to see women like all of you who are participating in this panel and who are listening, having their rights upheld and changed. And I assure you, I am not the only lawyer who is a fierce advocate for women. In all of your states and towns, there are lawyers just like me who want to be there to help women change the world and change the cycle of women being exploited and harassed by the NFL, the National Hockey League, any other organizations that are treating women like commodities instead of important, valuable participants in the entire athletic experience. So I'm going to turn it over to Amanda for a few minutes, and then we're obviously happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, and Sharon, before I talk too much about unionizing, I did want to mention, so when you brought up the contracts, that's something that we've really been talking about in looking at unionizing and what that means, because even when you look at when cheerleaders get their contracts, you're not getting it in a space where you can really take it home and think about it and say, let me go to a lawyer and decide, like, is this something that I can sign? The spaces that we're given these contracts are in spaces where it's like, if you want to be on this team, you're going to sign this contract now, and then you'll be able to move to the next level and space. There really is no conversation or legal counsel. And so that is something that, moving forward, even if unionizing is not the way that the current cheerleaders choose to go, thinking about, well, can directors take that move and say, well, let's give our women an opportunity, and men, because the team I cheered for had men, and give them that opportunity to have someone there, or to take the contract and go home and read it, and not be fearful that if they say, well, wait, this is saying that I can never post anything that has the uniform on, or that I can't tell people that I'm a cheerleader, or this is saying that I can't do any lawsuits, the NFL has to arbitrate everything, then they're not going to be faced with repercussions and not being able to be on the team if they do ask those questions.
Right. I mean, it's always better if you can to try to take the contract and have a chance to look at it before you sign it. It is quite rare that someone would actually, if you asked, can I take this contract home and bring it tomorrow? It's unusual that someone would say, no, you have to sign it immediately. If someone says that, you can sign it, and there's no guarantee you'll be able to get out of it, but you certainly should at least take it home and read it after that and talk to a lawyer to explore what your options are, particularly if you signed it under duress. I mean, there's a whole body of law where you can get out of contracts if someone forces you to proceed with it. So, Amanda, one of the most effective ways, of course, would be some sort of unionization.
Yeah, and that's something that we've been working on. So like Tukio mentioned, I am a former NFL cheerleader. I cheered for the Baltimore Ravens for 5 years. And I was also cheering when Lacey's lawsuit was going on and when the other lawsuits were going on. And it's interesting being on the retired end, because now I'm able to really look back at the lawsuits and to really look into them and investigate and see what happened and what was happening with my team then. And like I mentioned in a lot of conversations, I did not have a negative experience in the NFL. I had an amazing experience. I felt like my team really did respect me and value me as well as my teammates, but I do recognize that one, nothing is ever perfect. So there were still things that, you know, I did not necessarily agree with, but also that other teams didn't get that same thing. And that is something that collectively coming together and unionizing can really help with, because it gives everybody a seat at the table. And it's really important that when we're talking about unionizing, that people are realizing that it's not a lawsuit. Like, we're not saying that we're going to sue the NFL and that we're going against the NFL. What you're really asking for when you choose to unionize is to have a seat at the table and to change that power dynamic, because it really starts to make things negotiable. So no longer can they say, you know, well, we're going to pay you this much this year because this is in the budget. Well, your union can say, okay, well, let's see the budget. Let's look at this together. Let's figure out something that works for every single NFL team and not just this one team. And so I think that's something that's really important for people to realize, that there's power in numbers and there's strength in numbers. And we've held a lot of safe spaces and conversations. And I know some current cheerleaders and former cheerleaders are listening and watching this. And I would encourage you to continue to join our safe spaces, continue to gain more knowledge. You know, knowledge is power, and really understanding what unionizing is, where you stand on it. Because I think it was Ari that mentioned earlier, you can have two different challenges and two different issues that you want to fight for, but still collectively come together on a middle ground to find something that works for everybody. And so continuing to have the conversations, continuing to join our clubhouse talks that we have. We do have a website called NFLCheerleaderUnion.com. There you'll find all the different steps to unionizing. You'll see kind of where we are right now and where we'll go to. There's even authorization cards on there if you feel like you are ready right now to unionize and to sign and say that you support. But the biggest thing is to get the support from the current cheerleaders. We have a lot of former cheerleaders that are interested in that, you know, we want to support, but we really have to just support and help you move forward and organize. We can't actually organize on our own because we are not current employees and cheerleaders at the moment. That's also something that's important to know.
So one of the things that I want to talk about a little bit more, Amanda, is do you think, I know that just last week, the Washington team released all the cheerleaders. Do you think that has anything to do with some of the unionization issues, or do you think that has to do with the lawsuit that was recently brought against the team regarding the essentially pornographic video that was created from the cheerleaders modeling?
Yeah, I think that what happened with the Washington football team was incredibly sad, and it was a total lack of accountability on the team side. It really does feel like, and I can't speak for the women that cheer on that team. You know, I can only be an ally to them, but from the outside looking in, it feels and looks to me like it could be a form of retaliation. And, you know, if we were unionized prior to that, then things could look a little bit different, because they can't just say, well, we're going to rebrand, so bye. No, they have to have a conversation. It has to be like, okay, well, let's rebrand together, which is what I've heard that the Washington football team is asking for. Like the cheerleaders, they want, what I'm hearing is that they want to be a part of the conversation. And I think that every NFL cheerleader really just wants to be a part of the conversation and not just have things told to them and thrown at them, but they want to be a part of the decision-making process. And that is something that unionizing can help with, is to give you that seat at the table to be a part of your employment decisions.
I mean, the sad reality is in the wake of the wage theft lawsuits, I mean, Lacey's was the first one, but many teams, I think 6 or 7 teams have now been sued for that. Some of the teams made the decision that rather than remedying the problem, they would just cut the squats. So the Buffalo Jills, for example, they haven't danced in years because the Jills were, they protested their wage theft, they sued, and they just cut the team entirely. And I have to say, it did not occur to me, not that it would have changed the decision we made to represent Lacey, but it didn't occur to me that the result would be that the NFL would cut its cheering squats, because the amount of money that we're talking about to compensate these women fairly and under the law is trivial, given the billions that the NFL is making.
Yeah, it really seems like it's the easy way out, that, oh, if you make noise, then you're just going to be out and we don't want to have to deal with you anymore. And I think this panel alone and just the documentary as well, and all the different support that has been coming in for NFL cheerleaders and NBA cheerleaders, and really just all professional cheerleaders in the space, shows that they can't just get rid of us and we're just going to be quiet about it. Like, you have formers who are now, really wanting to speak out. You have current cheerleaders who are educating themselves more on figuring out, like, okay, what does my contract say? Attending sessions like this, coming together and really collaborating on things. And so I think that it will be a lot more challenging for people or the NFL to say, we're just going to get rid of all NFL cheerleaders, now that it feels like we all have really found our voice now. And so I just hope that continues, and that the courage and the bravery that so many women have already shown will continue to trickle down throughout the entire NFL cheerleading.
Yeah, I mean, I think that from my perspective, I mean, I've been litigating cases on behalf of women and people of color for 30 years. And I've seen a sea change in not just how society views these, but how the women and the people of color themselves view these. Because there's definitely been, a shift in where we are as a country in terms of listening to women who claim that they're harassed, listening to people who claim that they're being treated differently because of their race or their national origin. And I think that there is a growing momentum that is going to help women in this situation. And I would encourage everybody who's listening to us to think about, what steps can they take to kind of move the ball forward to make sure that women are treated fairly. I mean, we're not asking that these women are treated better. We're just asking for fair treatment, and that should be the minimum. In our case, unfortunately, the law only provided that we could sue for minimum wages, but compensating cheerleaders at the minimum wage level is not, in my opinion, equal treatment with the people who are out on the field just sitting at the end of the bench for the entire game and are being paid so many hundreds of multiples of what the women are being paid. It all has to be part of a movement that we all participate in, even though it's scary, and I understand that is scary.
Yeah, that fear is definitely really there. And when you said something in the beginning, and I just drew a blank on it, so I'm going to try to repeat it. If I say it wrong, let me know. But
no problem.
You were saying something about how what can people do now to think about, like, what can I do in any sphere now to really help women in sports or NFL cheerleaders? And I truly believe, and this might be the counselor in me, but that it's going to start from the younger ages on up, and that we have to change the culture in cheerleading as a whole. We have to change this power dynamic where the cheerleader doesn't have any power and they're constantly just being told what to do and yelled at and berated. Like, we have to change the culture of cheerleading so that when we do get up to the level that we all work so hard to reach at the professional level, that our mental state is changed. We're no longer, looking at ourselves as less than. We're no longer giving into this toxic culture. And I remember when I first met Mhkeeba, who made the documentary, one of the things that I said to her was that, with me having this nonprofit and developing cheerleaders and teaching them all about confidence and courage and empowerment, it just doesn't sit right with me to continue to remain silent when they do have dreams and aspirations to reach the highest level of cheerleading, but yet everything that they're learning right now is not always going to benefit them when they get up there if we're not actually going to change the culture there. It's like we're setting them up for failure. So I would say that no matter what sphere and space that you're in, you can start with what actions you can individually take to make something better for a woman, a young girl, anybody that in sports. You can take one single action to help support them through that.
That's absolutely true. I mean, one of the things that I thought was fascinating in representing Lacey, and that she talks about in the documentary, is when she started out, she didn't think of herself as being feminist. And she moved to that position because she came to understand that being a feminist just means standing up for women, banding together and making sure that women are treated equally. And I encourage all of you to try to look at the world that way. All of you are daughters or mothers or wives, or everybody has come through this process. And the more that we stand up, the more that you'll see the world change into what you want it to be.
Absolutely. And I would even echo collaboration too, collaborating with everybody within the organization, like getting rid of this, well, we're just gonna do what we want to do because we're the head of the NFL, but really cooperating and working collaboratively with the cheerleaders and everybody within the NFL space.
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of room for change. But I definitely see things moving in that direction. I mean, the fact that we're even having a panel with all of these people participating in the discussion, I mean, a lot of that was because of our brave filmmaker who decided that, years ago, when this was just, a baby issue, that she was going to, start moving that. But the fact that I see a lot more discussion about it is really heartwarming.
Yeah, unless Amanda and Sharon, if you have something else to add, we'd love to open it up for some questions.
Sure.
I know Danny, who mentioned earlier that they work with information technology that helps with the gender pay gap. Their question is, one, does the NFL have the money to pay these cheerleaders? And two, who do they need to get in front of to make that happen? Or what can they do within their workspace to really push the NFL to get there?
I mean, there's no doubt that the NFL has the money to pay for this. I mean, even this year when, the entire football season changed pretty dramatically because of COVID, the teams weren't insisting that the games be played because they weren't making money. I mean, they make, millions, if not billions of dollars every year. To pay all of the women and men on the cheerleading squad a fair wage is, it's a trivial amount of money. It's a couple $1 million at most. What I'd like to see at the end is that women are paid for their value, which is a lot more than minimum wage.
Mm-hmm.
Amanda, do you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the NFL for sure has the money to pay. I think it's just a choice that maybe they're making to not pay the cheerleaders that amount. But if you can get in front of anyone in the front office, I would say go for it, because it's definitely something that can be helpful. And I do just want to say that the pay structure for all the teams are different, and that there are some teams that are getting paid very well, and there are teams that are getting paid for every single thing that they do, and then there are others that aren't. And so creating that consistency is really, really going to be important, so that there's not just one team that's getting paid everything, but that it's really trickling down to everybody, and everyone is getting paid as well.
Yeah, thank you for elaborating on that to both of you. So this may be a question more for Sharon. Terry asked, at the college level, dance teams are used as marketing representatives. Brand ambassadors perform for multiple sports and often receive no scholarships or financial assistance. Is this considered a job? Any advice here?
So, I mean, what happens to cheerleaders at various institutions varies dramatically. Lacey, for example, went to school in Louisiana, and she actually went to school on a scholarship. There is a woman who's just filed a lawsuit against Northwestern University. She's a cheerleader, and she alleged that she was sexually harassed. She also is on a scholarship. There's no particular, they're not considered jobs, but you can compensate athletes, whether they're cheerleaders or football players or baseball players, by giving them scholarships. There's no particular mechanism to force the universities to do that. So you can't go to them and say, you have to start, giving us scholarships, unless you can prove that it's being done on a discriminatory basis. So usually that's done by comparing apples and apples. So male swimmers and female swimmers are being treated, differently. But I think that you could make a pretty interesting case that if you looked at the teams that are being given scholarships and you found that, it was mostly male teams and not very much female teams, including the cheerleaders, because it's a sport just like anything else, you could try to use Title IX, which is what regulates discrimination in university settings.
Thank you so much. So just for people watching who are, maybe didn't have the opportunity to look into their contract, or maybe a lot of time has passed, what do you say to people who are current athletes now, the both of you? What can they do inside and outside of cheerleading?
So in terms of, people who were athletes going back, unfortunately in the law, there are certain provisions that prohibit you from going too far back in the past. So, if you were an athlete 10 years ago and you think that you were treated unfairly, there's probably nothing that you can do about that. But you can, even if you were an athlete 10 years ago, you can work with people who are athletes now and try to help them improve their situation. And certainly the work that Amanda and the people that she's collaborating with is really a game changer in terms of how these women athletes are going to be treated.
Yeah, I would definitely say read your contract. I even went back when I started working on unionizing initially. I even went back and found some of my old contracts from when I first made the team, and just reading through those to see even how they've changed and evolved over the years, and what you really signed up for, and even asking a lawyer. I mean, I know that attorneys cannot necessarily give legal advice, but you could go to them and say, hey, what does this actually mean? I'm just trying to understand this so that I don't make the same mistake next year, or that I take more time next year. And I would say, talk to us that are forming the union. It's not just me, we have a team. So it's like me and Mhkeeba are working very closely together on unionizing, who just spoke earlier with the Pro Cheerleading podcast, as well as a number of former cheerleaders and a couple current as well. So come out, hear more about the union. I do want to say, and I know that we're not done with Q&A, but because it's on my heart and my head right now, it is confidential. So we're not going to share with people what you're sharing with us. We're not going to talk to people about what you're sharing or what your contracts say. Those things are confidential, and we've already gotten some that we've kept very confidential and had some great conversations. But if you never really open the door to the conversation, or even open the door to hear more and learn more, then you're almost missing out on an opportunity to really educate yourself and to potentially take a step forward in the right direction. Again, unionizing is completely up to the current cheerleaders. So while, yes, we are working towards it, we're organizing, we have the steps that we're, lining up for you all to make things easier for you. We cannot take you to the finish line without you. Only you can, and only your experience now. So I just want to leave, you guys with that point.
Yeah, the other thing that I would add is, I know that for some of you, you've probably never met a lawyer. I mean, in my world, obviously, I know a lot of them, but we're not that scary. And more importantly, a consultation with a lawyer who does work on behalf of employees is almost always free. And if you call a lawyer and they won't give you a free consultation, look in the phone book and find another lawyer to call. I urge you to try to find somebody who actually knows about employment law, Okay, but if you find somebody who knows about employment law, you can get somebody who can give you 15 or 30 minutes of their time. They'll look at your contract and they'll tell you what's what. And it's always important to, know what your legal rights are. And that's true whether we're talking about the employment setting or the marriage setting or adopting or, car accident or whatever it is. Try to educate yourself because that's the best way to make sure you're protected.
Yeah. And I know Bridget and Kristan had previously mentioned retaliation, the ramifications, and do you all have any advice to anyone facing those currently, or from a legal standpoint, or from Amanda, an insider's perspective? We'd love to hear that.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if I fully understand the question. Are you just saying that from a repercussion standpoint, like how do you kind of move forward from that, or what do you do to prevent that? Or even like, what's legal recourse? Just anything anyone can use. And I'm hoping that people will, wake up tomorrow and feel like they can take action, but want to give them all the tools that they can do that with. Yeah, so since I'm not an attorney, I'm going to let Sharon answer most of it. But what I will say is that in terms of unionizing, you are not supposed to be retaliated against for unionizing. There are laws that protect you from companies retaliating against you for wanting to unionize. Now, they can say other things. They can do what they did with the Washington football team and make up, a rebranding thing or whatever it is that they want to do. They can say whatever they want to say, but ultimately they cannot fire you or give you repercussions just because you wanted to unionize, because you do have that right to unionize. So I'll leave with that and let Sharon answer the legal piece.
No, that's exactly right. I mean, there are laws, and I mean, certainly in California, and I think in most states, and there are federal laws also that prevent against retaliating against people who unionize. There are also laws that protect you if you complain about discrimination or harassment. And I would say in many situations, a lawsuit for retaliation is stronger than the underlying lawsuit, whatever you're complaining about. So definitely, if you feel like you're being retaliated, you should consider bringing some sort of legal action. And there are all kinds of state agencies that will help you for free.
Yeah, we appreciate that's actually a really good thing for people to know moving forward. Well, we appreciate your time. We're going to still keep you on, and we're just going to welcome back all the other panelists to open up the questions. So feel free to pop your questions into the chat box or the Q&A. Bridget, Carrie Ann, Kristan, and Mhkeeba, if you're able to join us, we'd love that.
Hey,
I know there was.
Hey! Hello.
Yeah, I know there was a few questions that went unanswered, or if there's anything that you all wanted to speak on, I'd love to give you the time. I have a question myself, and by no means do I mean you need to solve it tonight, but I know the impetus of the film was based on, gender gap pay, but as we've learned tonight, there is so much more happening within the NFL organization. What does success of the issue stated today, what does the success look like?
From my perspective, of success would look like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, there's a dog in the background. I'm hoping she'll be quiet. To me, success would look like the full attention of the NFL, meaning with Roger Goodell starting at the top, not just one meeting, a series of meetings, not just a meeting, but also a role, hire somebody whose job it is to ensure that there is consistency and best practices implemented across NFL for cheerleaders. There'd be like a whole office designated to the betterment of our working conditions until we get this right. To me, that's what success looks like.
Yeah, I would even echo that and say that, it just looks like intentionality, like being intentional about hearing what the cheerleaders are saying, sitting down with them, having a conversation and really wanting to create change, and not just small changes where it's like, oh, I'll up their pay by a couple dollars just to, get them to stop talking, but being intentional about the changes that you're making that will actually make an impact, and that's something that they want. So hearing from them.
Would anyone else like to take the question? Oh, sorry, Mhkeeba, go ahead.
No, don't even let me dominate. It's just something I'll let the rest of the panelists mention, but I would love to touch on success in another realm of being able to kind of create a bridge from not just the pro world, but what the college athletes are facing, and that knowing that it trickles down to high school as well. But we can put up on that after other people get a chance to answer that.
I would say success would also be having women in the front office. You know, if you have women who are actually running the teams, you're going to see a change in how the, women are being treated as athletes.
This is a little bit related, but not totally. Something that I did want to mention that I'm working on is also educating the players, because as a journalist, obviously there are lots of different retired current players that I've talked to who have zero clue what's going on. And then when I tell them about it, they are shocked because they can't imagine their, wives, girlfriends, sisters, moms ever dealing with what we've dealt with. And I think that that's something that's very powerful, once they have that knowledge, because we're all in this together in the league. And I think that goes the same for people in the front office, wherever they may work, if women on the coaching staffs. I think that more people just need to be educated, and especially those people who, I'm not saying like have power, but more influence in the situation that we're in, because like Kristan said, like there's power in numbers.
Yeah, and that brings us to Neil's question asked earlier during your session. Wanted to hear from both you and Kristan. What is the most important thing male athletes and allies can do to support female athletes' mental health and work for lasting change?
I'll go with the same thing that we're battling in the NFL is this spirit of silence and fear of, you're here to be seen and not heard. Again, it starts with your own personal journey of bravery, but sometimes you have to do it scared anyway. And so I would definitely say what current athletes can do is start talking. Don't be afraid to use your voice over topics of discussion. I mean, we look at the NFL and the progress it's made, from Tim Tebow kneeling to pray to, Colin Kaepernick kneeling to make a political change. And then all these men in the NFL, like they are making statements for what they believe in. And so like Bridget said, is informing them of what is happening within their very industry behind the same uniform that they're wearing. They just have no idea. So bringing awareness to the forefront of what is actually happening behind the uniform within the NFL industry, and how too they can make a statement, because, they do have a bigger platform. Right. They do have a little bit more freedom in their options to take up on, like being an influencer, or they have an option to speak out more freely than us scripted cheerleaders did in our uniform. So definitely using your voice. I will say that repeatedly. No difference is going to be made if you support us privately. If you're not supporting us publicly, then we're going to remain stuck right where we are. We have to conversate, not loudly, but in public places. And right now, the most public place is social media.
Exactly. And social media is so powerful. I mean, there's a reason that I'm not working in television anymore and I'm solely digital, because that's where our power is right now. We can like directly influence all of these people who need to understand. And something I was just thinking of was I was interviewing a Colts player, I think a month or two ago, and he was bringing up some, asking me questions about things. And I, for the first time, actually heard that the players, obviously not people who are busy at the time, are watching our routines, see everything. Like they see us. It's not just, see you at an appearance and like can't talk, whatever. Like there are many that do understand our value. So for people like that who have that influence in the league to see that we are actually not being valued, even though you see the game day value, what we provide, that's what I think is the conversation that like we need to have.
Yeah, don't send us a private DM, saying you're sorry for the treatment that we're facing. Like, actually be courageous enough, to choose your sword and fall on it. If you care about the movement that much and you care about, the women in the NFL and what we're facing, if you really, truly care, then you'll do it publicly.
You're muted,
along
Mhkeeba.
if anyone has kind of on the same vein.
What's on mute?
Do you want to go ahead?
I was going to town, didn't realize I was on mute, but you're the moderator. I'll let you.
No, bring it back. Bring it back.
No, it was just the point that Terry.
I'm putting myself on mute. Yeah, now you have.
Okay, sorry about that, guys. I was just seeing Terry's comment about women not supporting women, and I love the commentary so far about men jumping into the equation and talking. But I do think Terry raised a good point about, one of the things I've discussed in the podcast, and it's just something that's unfortunate, but when you think about a lot of the cases that came about with lawsuits, the people who were actually the bad actors, if you will, in those situations were female directors. And I just think it is something that maybe we should talk about, of how women treat women and how safe we feel with other women and what we should be doing to support each other. Because I think, it's a sensitive topic, but I think it's just worthy of discussion. I think when it comes down to why women aren't standing up for each other, and it's just this selfish position of kind of like, I'm in it for me, or they're not looking at anything beyond themselves, frankly. And I think at the end of the day, if you're so driven by, I want to be squad leader, I want to be Pro Bowl cheerleader, I want to be the face of the franchise on all of, social media, website, whatever. And if that's your mindset, then you're probably not going to be somebody that would support your other teammates, or, if that's what you're driven by. And so understanding what your true purpose is and kind of reconciling that, if you really are in it for the wrong reasons, I think that probably, in my mind, explains a lot of what I see in terms of women not supporting women, whether that's directors holding back opportunities from people on their team because they're jealous, because they have their favorites. I mean, there's all sorts of dynamics there. And unfortunately, that gets in the way of us making some progress. But I just thought it was a good point to raise, Terry.
Well, and the fact that we're kind of pitted against each other and we're not acting as teammates or sisters. I don't know if everyone feels that way, but I just know that that's how I felt. Like, I came in thinking, like we said, like, oh, I've made it and this is going to be incredible sisterly bond, but everyone was out for themselves. And like you said, Mhkeeba, the directors are females, and they don't even, like, I feel like I couldn't even have a true conversation. Even though I did like my coach, I felt like I couldn't have a true, honest conversation. I was always fearful, always scared. And I thought that all girls were bitchy and backstabbing, honestly, until I left that world and I met people here on social media, and I saw that, like, we all as women can support each other. But I'm not kidding you, like, because of the NFL cheerleading world, I truly thought that, like, women don't support each other, and that's just not true. But it's a true stigma. Whenever anybody does ask me, like, oh, well, we're the girls mean, and I hate to feed into their thing, but in my head I'm thinking, like, I don't think it was necessarily like we were trying to be mean to each other, but everyone was just out for themselves, because when you're in like an abusive culture like that, all you're trying to do is survive.
My phone is probably about to die, but I do want to get in on this because it is a huge, important conversation where we do kind of take 10 steps back when we do get a lawsuit, or we do finally get our voices to be heard. It's like, if you look at the comments from my lawsuit personally, the most hateful comments are from women. And the reason why my lawsuit came out was because I was abused by the hands of women. And it is a learned behavior. I think in the NFL, it is a toxic culture of not just a healthy competitiveness in the athletic world, but truly toxic competitiveness, and where they will spread lies about you. The coaches, it's like they revel in this drama. And if there's not drama, they'll create it. I was painted an enemy when I spoke out just about basic human rights. You have the freedom to believe in whatever you want to believe in. I believe in Jesus Christ just as much as you have the right to not believe in him. And I'm not on the altar, like, baptizing women in the locker room like the freaking Philadelphia Eagles football team was. But dang it, I have the right to still hold my faith true to my heart. And the world is going to try to manipulate and take many things from you. And the one thing they can never take is your faith. That belongs to you. And you have the freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom to ask for a freaking raise. And obviously most of our coaches and directors are women. And so, you know, as long as misogyny exists, the enemy is winning, because I think there is so much power in women linking hand in hand. And women are so like, you know, like, let's, you know, like hashtag empowering women, and then post a selfie of ourselves, and then secretly DM 10 more girls to post it. And I'm not trying to like bang up on my own kind. Like, I am a woman. I do understand identity crisis and low self. We were in there with mental discussion. I mean, Bridget and I, it means the most of us to bring awareness to mental illnesses and how we can overcome them. But at the same time, that's not true women empowerment. Women empowerment is looking at the bigger picture, putting yourself aside and knowing, hey, her picture may be on the cover of this, but we can unite as a united front, fighting and believing in the same thing and the same positive difference that we want to see made in the NFL. It is just like Mhkeeba said, it's putting yourself aside for the bigger notion and the picture that you want to paint in the NFL, which we truly need a positive difference to be made. And it's not going to happen with all of these side conversations of like, oh my gosh, look, she's probably just seeking fame, or she's money hungry. And it's like, wow, can we not paint a bigger picture that if it was about money, I would have never became an NFL cheerleader? Right. Oh, and by the way, I tried to settle my lawsuit for $1 to prove you guys wrong, and you still didn't publicly support me. Thank God for Mhkeeba, who gave me a voice when no one else was giving me a voice. Mhkeeba literally welcomed me in with the warmest heart and the softest voice, and gave me a voice when I thought that I had nothing left to say because women hated me. I was the enemy.
Well, I think that's why I if you guys listen to any of those episodes, I went on a rant. I went on a rant with when I interviewed the director of the of our documentary. You know, when we were speaking, and just, I care about just being fair and right. And I think anything around bullying or just women not supporting women rubs me the absolute wrong way, because we can do so much better when we support one another and seek out those opportunities to connect versus be divided. So that's why I did see.
Yeah, I did see the comment just now that said it is about money, and it should be about money, and that's so true. And it's like women have been fearful to bring up money issues because of the repercussions that come with it, of like, oh, you're ungrateful, you're selfish, you're this, you're that. And it's like, we're just literally simply asking for, you know, our basic right. And I also had a point and I forgot it. So I'm going to stop talking. I just lost my point in that.
I do think it's important that we still address the younger age group though, and that we do talk about the athletes that are in college and in high school. And I even think about my students, like, you know, we have to change the culture of women supporting women and young girls supporting young girls. Like we have to really be intentional about that and what that looks like. And that may not look like you agreeing 100% with what the other person does, but that doesn't mean that you can't support them. That doesn't mean that you can't stand side by side with them, or that also could also look like you just not talking badly about them behind their back to everyone else when they're trying to do their lawsuits. Like there are just so many things that we can be intentional about in supporting other women that we may not necessarily agree with. It doesn't mean that we can't still support them.
Right. That's interesting you say that, because I remember when Lacey's lawsuit came out, I was on the team, and I felt like my judgment and everything was so clouded at the time because I was just trying to survive, and I didn't understand where people were like. And that's what is so wrong, is that at that time, because of the gaslighting, because of the just all we are doing to stay afloat, we can't even see, our judgment is clouded, and that's not okay. And I know like every team is different. And so that I was defending my team. Like, oh, well, this, oh, well, I get this. Oh, well, you know, they love me. But if they really loved me, then they would treat me with respect, like a human, like what anyone gets when they work any sort of job. But I just remember when that first lawsuit came out, I didn't get it. And it took me time to process all of that and to heal. And I think that that's what's important about informing the next generation, is sometimes when you're in it, you're like, your judgment is just so clouded and you can't fully understand these things, and you start judging other women. And that's what we need to not do.
And Bridget, I'm with you, because when the lawsuits were going on and I was cheering too, I turned a blind eye just because we didn't have that trouble. Like, we didn't have that same pay struggle. So I was like, oh, well, that's not happening to us. So, let me just keep quiet over here because we're not, dealing with that. And so in hindsight, it would be helpful in those moments when those things do come out to not just say, oh, we're good over here, you guys just figure it out, but to say, no, actually, let's help them get what we have if we feel like this is okay.
Amazing. I just want to take a quick second to thank Sharon. I know she has to leave at the moment. So we just want to thank her and give her, what is the final takeaway if you have a second to give to the audience. We really do appreciate your time.
So when Lacey filed the lawsuit, not very long after Lacey came aboard, we had another woman who came aboard. Her name was Sarah. And it was extraordinarily helpful to Lacey that there was a woman in her corner, because most of her teammates had completely shunned her. The sad reality is Sarah, who had been on the team for years and had all of these friends, people who she had been in their wedding, she was completely shut out of everything afterwards. And I would like to think that we've all learned enough in the past 6 years that were this to happen again, people would be a little more enlightened about supporting each other. So, here's to the sisterhood. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sharon.
This sisterhood, the one where we all support each other and you're not told like, these are your sisters, and then you backstab each other.
Any business that's like, hey, we're a family, just run.
Yeah.
That's manipulation right off the bat. Like, just run.
And I know you mentioned earlier that different teams look differently. What does a structure look like that is outside of monetary? I mean, obviously money is important. Like, people need to make a living wage. But what differs between other experience between Bridget and Kristan and their coaching experience, as well as their teammate experience, as well as, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you lacked a lot of support and community with the people you were with every single day. And I'd love to turn to Amanda and see, what your experience was like, as well as what is a good model for that.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if there is like a perfect model for it. I'm not sure if any team is all the way there yet. Like I mentioned, I did have an amazing experience in my 5 years. Everything was not perfect, so I don't want anyone to think that everything was perfect, but I definitely felt respected and honored by the organization and my director. But when I look at the differences in other teams in terms of things that they're getting paid for, the pay amount, the amount of appearances that, they might be able to do or get, the hair, being able to have someone to do your hair. And when I say, a hairstylist, I don't mean just one hairstylist, but a diverse hairstylist, somebody that can do African-American, Latinx people's hair too, as well as, Caucasian people's hair, and not just one set of persons, of people. And then, even when I think about, nails and different sponsorships and things like that, that definitely varies across the board. And something that I would like to see that I haven't seen on any team. So if this isn't a team, please let me know. But benefits. So being able to have benefits within the organization that you work for, and not having to have your own benefits, because most of us were required to have a full-time job or be a full-time student. And when you look back at that and you think, oh, well, was that because I needed benefits so that if I get hurt, I don't have to worry about these other things? Because, when injuries happen, you're not sent to the team doctor. Like, yes, we were grateful to have, an athletic trainer with us that I know many teams don't always have with them, but we were able to have that, but we didn't necessarily have free reign with the team doctor. So if something happened to us, we had to go out and seek our own medical attention and mental attention, food support when, if we were overweight or we needed to fix something. Like, we didn't necessarily have a nutritionist with us that would walk us through that.
Yeah, Mhkeeba, if you want to jump in, I definitely want to open up the conversation to you all and would love for you all to discuss together, like Bridget said, it's a sisterhood, and I'm happy to be here at the very least to witness it.
No, you're in the sisterhood.
Yes, she has a cheer background. She's in the sisterhood. No, I just think that all of the comments and conversation today has just been wonderful. And again, I'm thinking just by us connecting and you guys putting together such an awesome panel of women, just that there's so much room for us to extend these same concerns and issues, not just across like the NFL, but the NBA. I mean, one thing that I noticed with the podcast was we're talking, a lot of the focus when it first started was on NFL cheerleading, but realizing the NBA dancers also experienced their share of very similar issues that we did. I think when I think of college athletes that are in cheerleading or anybody that's in high school, you're going to grow up into this and hopefully evolve in a system where you reach this level. So the more that we can just pollinate, cross something, like we just have a lot that we can actually work towards together. And I think, I don't know why college is just so heavy on my brain at this moment, but I think because it's not necessarily, cheer and dance is not necessarily considered a sport, and you have all the issues with NCAA in terms of recognizing that and what you're entitled to under Title IX, fill in the blank. I would just want to say, because it's on my head and I just want to get it off, is just that because what I see, I cheered at college at Georgetown, so maybe this is what's going back, and we didn't have nearly as many appearances and different demands placed on us when I was at Georgetown. However, for anybody that's listening, the more that we can start thinking of everything that we do for these organizations or universities as something that should be compensated for in some way, where if it's not a job, there's some other things that can be brought to the table to discuss. I think if you look at your program, if you're a coach, if you're on a team, and you think of all the things that you're asked to do or told to do, and think about why they're asking you to do that, why is that important for them, to the university, for you to go and mingle with donors or whatever the heck it might be. Think of every activity that you spend your time on while you are balancing your career and your studies. Just start thinking about your value now and early, so that you can decide together as a team, ideally, that is worth something. And if there's something that you want that you're not getting, I think it's a sit down with the athletic administration to say, listen, we do all of these things. We need you to do X for us. And if that's not a scholarship, it might look like something else. And maybe you just have the flexibility or the wherewithal to say, no, I'm not going to ask my dancers or my cheerleaders to do X, Y, and Z activities because they're not compensated and it's stressful and we're not treated the way we want to be treated. So we won't be at fill in the blank. And if you all unite to say that, I mean, it's just on my mind, because I think it's just that kind of mentality of thinking about your self-worth and being willing to combine and connect with other people on that same path, that you can probably make a difference. Because if we all start saying no, I think in the right kind of way, I think we might start being heard. So I just have to say that.
Well, and I'm so glad you brought up college, because for me, that's where all of this toxicity started. I actually had a good relationship with my coach, with the Chargers. But most of the way things are run were disgustingly abusive. Versus when I was in college, my coach was extremely abusive, to the point where the year after I had graduated, the athletic department called me, investigating, and she's still coaching. I don't know how she freaking kept her job. But they called me asking why I never came out and why I never spoke, because they were hearing things finally that I had been through. And I said to them, I was so I felt like I didn't have anyone. I was too afraid of losing my spot on the team. That mattered to me so much, because I was at a really big school. I was cheering in national championships constantly. We had this incredible opportunity, and I didn't want to be ungrateful. Like we've spoken that so many times. And I was so hard on myself at that time. Like, why didn't I go to the athletic department? But I didn't feel comfortable. So I think it's also about educating, the organizations about, okay, maybe I don't know if it'd be HR or whatever, but here's a place where cheerleaders can go and express their concerns. It's a safe space. It's not going to go and get back to the coach or whatever, but we need a space like that, whether it's in the NFL, it's in the college, it's in even the younger spaces, because that's what's the hardest part is we are silenced because we don't know what's right from wrong, because I hate using the word, but I truly believe we're brainwashed.
Yeah, I'd love to see something like that, Bridget. When you were talking, I was imagining like some headquarters where cheerleaders could call in from all over and, you know, talk about different things. And I'd love to see, you know, something like that brought to college cheerleaders, to NFL, NBA, just across the board.
Exactly.
Yeah, and how you all found each other and created this community. What is your advice for specifically cheerleaders, dancers who are within your community, and you know how to get in a specific sect, or people who are in sports, and how to foster that community of trusted individuals?
It might not be people that you expect. I will just say that, you know, don't be alarmed if all of a sudden you find more in common and you start growing closer to people that you've just met over Instagram, the internet, whatever, because you're finally finding people who have been through what you've been through, and they're validating your experiences, your concerns. And I think that's what was scary for me at first. I was like, well, you know, why am I barely friends with any teammates anymore, and blah, blah, blah. But I have all of these new, amazing, incredibly supportive friends who cheered for other teams. And that's okay. And I think just reaching out, whether it's about a strict concern or whatever, like we do all have something in common because we've all been through the system, whether you had a really great experience, whether you didn't, or whether you just haven't recognized it all yet. I have noticed that people from other teams have all just been so welcoming. Like, Mhkeeba and I have talked in forever, but like, she's one of my favorite people that I spoke to, and we chatted up forever because I think just knowing that we had been through similar things and we all understand each other at this like weird underneath level is what makes it easy to have that conversation. It just can sometimes be scary to start. That's like networking. You know, it's scary to reach out, but I think what's great about social media is it's a little bit less intimidating now, and just, you know, just reach out, and it doesn't have to be serious. Like, hey, I heard you're doing this, blah, blah, blah. Like, here's my whole life story. No, just, you know, say, hey, I love what you're doing. That's so cool. I cheered here. You know, let's chat sometime.
Yeah. And trust.
Go ahead, Amanda. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say trust takes time, you know, so like you can make little trust deposits. Like maybe you don't go and to the first person and say like your entire life story or share these things that are really intimate to you, but leave a little trust deposit and see how they react to that. And then you'll know like if you can trust them more and more. And I would also say, just like Bridget said, seek out people who, you'd be surprised at the people who will actually support you and that you can trust, that may not look like what you thought that the person that you could trust would be. So just really trying those trust deposits and looking outside of your everyday sphere, taking those risks, safe risks.
Mhkeeba, would you like to add on to that?
You know, I just think everybody's pretty much said it. I think it's just not being afraid. I think I've joked about the podcast being like a vault, but anybody that reaches out, direct message over Instagram or any other means, it is definitely confidential unless you don't want it to be, and I can talk about it on the podcast, but you definitely have a support system that you just maybe not aware of. But I think everybody on this call is probably willing to make themselves available if you just want to vent or chat and talk. And I'm grateful for everybody that's come into my life just by having the podcast. And I think you have allies that you just probably would never even have imagined. So don't be afraid to reach out.
Thank you so much. And we're gonna wrap up this evening, and I'll give everyone a chance to give us a final statement, of course. But I just want to say, I hope everyone has enjoyed the program put together, and hope that everyone is able to make, you know, some small action after this, whether it is just following any of these ladies or reading one of their blogs, listening to their podcast, just to continue this conversation. It doesn't have to end tonight. So we are so thankful for them, and I will pass it over to Bridget to start.
I mean, I feel like I've left it all out on the floor here, but I would just say start by realizing how your actions affect other people, because I even realized like my rookie season, I didn't stand up for women on my team who were being bullied, and I wish I had done that. So like there are things where I feel like I can take accountability because I think about that now, and I think making ourselves accountable and being okay with putting ourselves first before the entire team is just honestly the biggest thing I would want anyone to take away is you are so valued. You are worth something more than just that uniform, just a symbol. And know that. And if you ever need anybody to validate that, like we're here for you. I will absolutely validate that for you. And it should honestly encourage you and not discourage you, because I truly do believe that change is coming. And there's just, they can't fight us all. You know what I mean? We're too strong for that. They're not going to be able to stop us. We're not stopping at any point. So don't be discouraged if you're looking into going into NFL cheerleading. I don't want this to leave you with a bad taste in your mouth. I want this to empower you and educate you and know, okay, here's how I can make a difference even before I get there. So by the time I get there, you know, it's just maybe not perfect, but it's, you know, a lot better. Because I think, like Kristan said, we're not all doing this for money, and we're not doing this for fame, because if we were doing, we would have done it in a completely different way, and we would be silent, because then we would be appreciated by the NFL, whatever. Like, I work with the NFL players all the time. I know that half the time my reputation is on the line when I'm speaking ill. And I think that that's the biggest thing, is just knowing that, like, your opinion matters, you matter, and it's okay to be an individual and not just be Bridget the cheerleader, Mhkeeba the cheerleader, Amanda the cheerleader. That's okay that you are more than that, because you are. And then, yeah, you can follow me on my Instagram at AfterOrangeSlices, or my TikTok is Bridget Case. I'm super active on there, and I recently started a Twitch live stream so you can find that like on my website and stuff. So yeah, that's basically it.
Thank you so much. We can pass it along to Amanda.
I think that my one final thing I would leave people with is just really understanding that knowledge is power, and that, you know, really educating yourself and knowing more is the most important thing that you can do in terms of making a decision about your future, whether that's in NFL cheerleading or really in any other space, really weighing your options and knowing what you're up against and what steps you need to take to get there. And just listening in on this and joining this tonight is an amazing first step that you've already made to educate yourself, to move forward. And so continue doing that, continue, you know, making those trust deposits, continue reaching out to people and using your voice to empower yourselves to make the change in NFL cheerleading, because we all have the power to create the change, whether it's a large change or small everyday things. We all have the power to make a change.
Thank you so much. And I just want to mention, I think we've lost Amanda, but I just wanted to mention before Mhkeeba closes us out, is if you're interested in watching the film, if you can go to awomensworkdoc.com, awomensworkdoc.com, I put it in the chat. You can find the options there. And Mhkeeba, if you want to, we'd love to have you close us out.
Oh man, pressure. It's all been said, so I'm trying to think of something unique to add to the puzzle. But I think just in light of everything that's going on and where we are, I would say not to lose faith and hope that we have the power and the strength to actually overcome all of this. I think there have been definitely waves of, you know, emotion around the state of cheerleading, frankly. And I just think, you know, take a step back and feel encouraged, because I think we are, professional cheerleaders in general, in my opinion, are just like superheroes. You know, you have an amazing background as an athlete, you're well-rounded, you're well-spoken, you can be put in any situation, trust, with appearances you'll learn, and you can just, you know, fly with it and do amazing things and connecting with people. And so you're just also amazing in my eyes. And I just want you to not feel too discouraged by where we're at, and really thinking of, you know, like everybody mentioned, just small ways, and starting with yourself, of ways that you can make that imprint, because it's going to take small steps. It's going to take bold steps as well. And there's a space for everybody, I guess, to get involved. So I just would encourage everybody to.
Oh, I think we might have lost her. We'll give it a sec. Go ahead, Amanda.
I was just going to say, if there are current NFL cheerleaders that are interested in learning more about unionizing, please go to our website, nflcheerleaderunion.com, or you can email us at nflcheerleaderunion@gmail.com. Again, it's confidential. Nobody knows that you're there, but we do host different meetings, and we're creating an internal platform. So everything that we talk about in terms of unionizing cannot be public, just to protect every single person that is involved. But please reach out to us through that, and I will put it in the chat.
I have no idea what happened, but that's probably a sign that I should go.
Excuse me, I was on mute. So we'll all end it here tonight. And thank you so much for everyone joining us, and follow us at A Woman's Work on Instagram so to see more.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a good night, everybody.